of Minnesota. The cities we've been working with so far have been Duluth, Brooklyn Park, Brooklyn Center, St. Paul, and Minneapolis. You'll hear from some council members from the Minneapolis, St. Paul. You'll hear from the mayor in Brooklyn Park, and then you'll hear from Carl Crawford in Duluth. And my job is to introduce two guys who have been doing this work, helping us move the agenda for the last couple of years about our engagement with voting. So you're gonna hear a variety of people speaking today, and we want to take this message all across the state of Minnesota to tell people how important it is for us to vote and participate in the game, and plus to talk about what people are doing in their area that you can help with. So that's what I'm not going to take up the time to all the time that I need here, but it's so important to me as an activist, as a freedom fighter, to be starting this process to take us to the next level and have us voting and agreeing about what we're doing with the United Black Legislative Agenda, and all of us participating together to take us to the next level. So I'm going to introduce the two guys that's going to be facilitating this discussion. I'll be back. We got the Urban League here. We got the NAACP here. We got community leaders here. We're from a lot. So let's work this thing together, and then we can take it on through the state of Minnesota, where we have over 300 African-American foundational Black voters, but we're not participating the way we should, and that's what we've been doing starting today. And I'm gonna introduce Brother Niles Wilson and Brother AJ Flowers to facilitate this discussion, and they're gonna come up now and thank them for everything they've been doing to try to push our agenda to make us a part of this society and doing this civic engagement. So AJ and I. Y'all get it.
All right, good morning to everyone that's here with us live in person as well as online. My name is Miles Wilson. I'm the Vice Chair of Minnesotans Organizing for Change and co-host this conversation this morning.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. My name is AJ Flowers. I'm the Chair of Minnesota Organizing for Change, an organization that was built to get our people civically engaged, talking specifically about foundational Black Americans, but also anybody who's not civically engaged, and finding a way to make us be organized, and not only be organized, but have a criteria while we're voting. That's one of the biggest things that we want to do. We're going to discuss some specific issues that the MLC is carrying in the UBLA, in 7 focus areas such as business and economic development, employment, housing, and education. We'll have some great guests here to speak about not only the problems that we face, foundational Blacks, but also start focusing on the solutions that we can have moving forward. And as I said, trying to build out a criteria here for when we vote. So it's not just about voting. It's not just about getting out to vote, but it's first you have to register. And then you have to build a criteria of what you're voting for, so that when people come in and speak to you, politicians, anyone else, you have a criteria set in place to ensure that your vote matters and that, and ensure that you get angry about the vote.
So we're going to the first guest, and we're with Carl.
And the first guest that we will have today is Carl Crawford. Carl Crawford is from Duluth. He's the Vice Chair of the Council on African Heritage. He's also working with the NAACP as well out there in Duluth. So we'll have our brother Carl Crawford join up here pretty soonly onto our live stream so that we can speak about some of the issues that's facing us out in Duluth, as well as some of the solutions that we can have moving forward. Brother Crawford.
Good morning.
Good morning. How you doing, brother? How you doing?
I am well. Good morning, everyone, and greetings from Duluth, Minnesota.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Oh, so Brother Crawford, if you can you just please just kind of explain who you are and some of the work that you're doing right now in Duluth before we get into some questions?
Absolutely. So my name is Carl Crawford. I'm the Vice Chair of the Minnesota Council on African Heritage. as well as I am the accessibility and engagement coordinator for St. Louis County.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. So, Brother Crawford, we'll just get right into it. You know, we've been speaking for a couple months now. We were with you guys at Day on the Hill, and we were speaking about the United Black Legislative Agenda once again, which is an agenda that's focused on foundational blacks in the state of Minnesota and finding a way to come up with solutions for our people and find direct investments into our community. Let's speak about some of the things that's happening up there in Duluth. When you think as it relates to the UBLA, can you speak to some of the issues that we're facing in Duluth right now, that our community is facing right now in Duluth?
Absolutely, I'd be happy to, but before I get started, I really want to give gratitude to you, Al Flowers, and the UBLA for pulling us all together on this Saturday morning for this important conversation. Some of the topics that I'm going to speak upon are housing, education, public safety, health, and wellness.
Yes, and go ahead if you can.
For us, I believe home ownership is the key to our communities becoming stronger. And we have to start looking at the concept of not just talking about renting, but talking about home ownership. In our state, we are one of the worst as far as Black people owning their homes. We need to change that dynamic and start having that conversation.
Absolutely, we're one of the worst states there is in the state in housing. So just speaking about that, if you don't have housing, if you don't have foundational housing, it's hard for anyone to be successful. As we said, one of the main goals of this conversation is to not only speak about some of the problems we face, where we know home ownership rates is lower amongst us than any other group within the state of Minnesota. What are some things that you believe that we should be doing as a community in order to start building getting better home ownership rates? Or some things we should be focusing on as a community to get home ownership?
I think one of the most important things we can do is concentrate our efforts on building a block. That was a concept I had with a brother we lost in our community way too soon. And that is for us to look at what would it mean to buy a block and concentrate our African heritage families in building a community.
Can we go deeper into that? When you say buy a block, what do you mean by that? And how do you see that getting accomplished?
I mean, finding locations in our community that we can invest in to create affordable loans for Black families to buy housing there. And the key is for us to build community where we can thrive.
Absolutely. And I think that's very important for us to build as one together, to build out our housing. And you spoke about public safety and education as well. I know that there's some colleges out there in Duluth that a lot of our city folks end up going to the playing sports. Can you speak to the education scene out there in Duluth and how is it hindering us? What is the process out there in Duluth as far as our young folks? I mean, I'm talking about post high school education, so I'm talking about in college.
Well, I'm glad you brought that because the balance at this time of year, I can't think of a word more powerful than graduate. And we need to understand high school, the reason they call it commencement, because that is the beginning, not the end. We have to talk about college and college education. One of the challenges we have here is when our people of color come to a predominantly white campus, all of our needs are not met. We have people, unfortunately, that come to our community and leave, not with a degree, but a felony. And we need to create opportunities where our students are successful and they are supported. So one of the things, often you hear the phrase welcome week. As Black community, we need to be a part of welcome week to let our kids know when they come to our community that they are loved, that they have a place to go, that they need to reach out and get help. But more importantly, we need to know each other, to support each other, because here in Duluth, we got kids of color who come here and spend 4 years of their life and they leave. we have to be looking at why they are not looking at calling this place home. And we know some of those answers. Now we got to step up and do something about it.
Absolutely. And I think that, you know, some of the schools that's out there in Duluth, I know a lot of people aspire to go there that's playing sports. If, you know, if you don't make the D1 option or D2 option, people are trying to get out there to this. So to hear that it's kind of not welcoming for our community is problematic. I look at that and I say, how is it that we can be better supportive of our students that's out there in Duluth from out in Minneapolis? So how is it that us people up here in the city, I should say, can be more supportive for our students out there in Duluth and some of those other cities as well?
Well, the first thing we have to do is we need to get to know our students. And I put some of that personal responsibility up north for me here to get to know who are the students that are coming in our community. And more importantly, let them know that we are counting on them. And we can support each other. But if I take a step back, I think the conversation of education has to begin within our own homes. I challenge everyone on this call to think about, what are the books you have in your home? What is your personal library, right? Do you have books that reflect our lives, our messaging, that lift us up? And the last thing is, I challenge us all this summer, go out and get a library card for you and for your family. There are so many books that have been banned now that we had an opportunity to create your own library. Build that building block right now. And when we have incredible organizations like the NAACP and other groups, let's find out who those students are that are coming to our community. Let's use that pipeline to share that information so we have our own welcome week for students when they come in our community.
So that's something that I take away right there, is that, you know, having our own welcome week as a community for our students that is going to go into post-secondary education after high school. So that's something right there that we can look at as a solution. As I said, we are here to speak about civic engagement. One of the things that's very big for us as an MOC organization is not just to get out to vote, but to also to create that criteria on what you're voting for, so that you don't just have people tell you what you want them to do. You give them an agenda, and you see if they're able to execute how they earn your vote. So when I hear you speak about welcome week and education, I look at it and I want to ask you, is there some legislative things you think that we should be looking forward to, or some questions we should be asking our legislators? We know that it's a governor race, it's plenty of races that's going on in the state of Minnesota this year. So are there specific things we should be speaking about, are asking our local elected officials or people that's coming into our community to be pushing for, to help better the education of the foundation of Blacks in the state of Minnesota?
Absolutely. We have to look at accessibility. There's no question that the impact of Black students going to colleges have suffered. Number two, the graduation rates. We should be able to hold our colleges and universities accountable. We should have that data. And that data should link to funding on whether or not our kids are succeeding, instead of just churning and burning. And I was one of those athletes who almost left my degree on the mantle, but I had to realize and go back and get it, because the hassle is worth the hassle. And some people are telling our kids that they don't need a college degree to succeed. There is some truth in that, but the majority of us do, because that opens up those doors. So don't leave that education on the shelf.
Yes, so accessibility, being able to understand the graduation rates, and also try to tie some funding to that, and hopefully these universities and these colleges accountable if our children are not being successful at these colleges. That is something that you believe that we should be putting on the map as we speak to politicians moving forward as far as education.
Yes, as well as to our athletic scholarships. There was a great conversation of tying in for every athletic scholarship, 2 non-athletes get a scholarship.
Focusing on our children who's not just playing sports, so we can be different education. I really think that's very great, because I think sometimes if you're not playing sports or you're not super student, sometimes we can let those children go by the wayside, and I feel like, you know, those children are just stuck in the middle. You know, unfortunately, if you're getting in trouble, we have a lot of programs in place for you, intervention programs and different things like that. If you're elite or you're an athlete, you're recognized. But if you're just that student that's just an A/B student, and not, don't have any super elite skills, but a great student and do everything right, we kind of push them by the wayside. Not push them by the wayside, but they're kind of looked over at times. So I think it is important that we make sure that we tell our children, and this is coming from a youth coach himself, that we tell our children that sports is not the only way out in sports, and you don't have to play sports in order to get a college education in the city of Minneapolis. So I appreciate you speaking on that as well. I want to get back to before we get done, I want to get back to the thing you said on housing, when you said that we need to buy a block and we need to find certain specific areas within our community that's not being used and find a way to buy a block. You spoke on how we kind of go about it. So what do you think is some of the major players? And then once again, going back to the legislative aspect of it, is that something that you think that we should be pushing at the legislation? Is that something that we should be pushing within?
I'm going to bring up a word that's pretty scary for a lot of folks, and it's called reparations. And I believe that there's an opportunity that we should be able to help our communities with that down payment to get a home. Number two, work with our realtors and find out where the opportunities we have to build our community. This isn't a new concept. It has been done before. When we think of Black Wall Street and the impact that had, we had opportunities for people to own their homes, to own their community, and more importantly, to talk about what businesses that are around their communities. And I'm forgetting the author's name, but there's a great book called What's in the Zip Code? And looking at what are the institutions that hold us in poverty? What are the places in our communities, right, that are not healthy for us?
Yes.
And why are our houses or housing opportunities for us to rent in those communities?
That's absolutely right. And I think you brought up something. You said, what kind of businesses are in our communities? And I think that's a very important thing, because I think that us owners business, but also having businesses that builds community in general is very needed. One thing that my brother Miles always tells me is that we have a lot of services when you think about especially over North Minneapolis, we have a lot of services and not as many businesses. Not to say that we don't need the services that are there, but we also need to grow businesses that's going over there. So how do you suggest, when you said what type of business, what are some of the type of businesses you think that we should be looking to within our communities all throughout the state of Minnesota?
I think we need to look at some of our Black financial institutions, our Black banks, as well as we should have more banks than check cashing places. We should have opportunity for us to have beautiful places for urban gardens to feed ourselves with healthy food and healthy food choices, and safe communities where our elders and our kids can walk. And I think those things are vital. When you look at a community that's thriving, look at the things that keep that community thriving, and look at the things that strangle a community. And I'm sure you can compare the businesses that are around those communities. And I think for our legislators, I'm going to challenge us all, get involved with your planning commissions within every city, every zip code, from Duluth down to the Twin Cities. There are planning commissions, there are all those organizations. Get involved. Have a say-so in your community on what's coming and maybe what shouldn't be in your community.
See, I'm glad you spoke on that planning community, because I think that, as I alluded to earlier, this conversation is really not only just about getting our people out to vote, registering to vote, of course, but also building up that criteria and understanding where you have power and having an understanding of where to go. I remember somebody told me, you have to go to all these meetings. You can't just go into the big ones that everybody calls. You have to go to one of those smaller ones, because that is where a lot of the work is getting done, like the planning commission. I don't think that if you spoke to most people in Minneapolis, they probably would know who's over those committees, who's one of those committees within the city of Minneapolis, and where could go hear those meetings. They're all public information. So I appreciate you for saying that, because once again, like I said, it's about building up that criteria, and the more you know, the better chance you have of building up that criteria. Because we know it's times where you ask the politicians a question and they'll point you to the other group. They'll say, oh, that ain't us, that's over there. Then you get kind of the run around and spin around. So how is it that we stay focused? And just even speaking on that, what are some other things that happen within the city that's not spoken about as much, that really affects everyday life in the city, with you being so involved out there?
Well, one of the things, and I'm glad you set that up for me. One of the reasons I'm wearing orange today is not only is Juneteenth celebrated in the month of June, this is also Gun Violence Awareness Month. And as soon as I hang up with this conversation, I got to go back out there for this event. But most of us don't realize this came after the death of Adiah Pendleton, who was shot and killed on the playground. This young lady, she performed President Obama's second inauguration parade, and 2 days later, she was killed. So we have to be in our communities, and we have to get illegal guns and violence out of our communities.
And
if you are a gun owner, please lock your gun, have it stored away. Get a gun lock. We're handing out free gun locks today, because that's a part of our communities, building those safe things. And we tragically are dealing with some of the murders and suicide within our communities, as I'm sure you are as well.
No, absolutely.
And as Black people, we got enough things trying to kill us. We don't need to be trying to kill each other.
Absolutely. And I really was just going to transition more into that, because one of the things that you spoke about when you came in was public safety. And we already know the numbers, what's going on within our community. Unfortunately, when you said orange, one of the things that came to my mind, was Be Healed. I was just up here, and I already had my shirt on, but I was supposed to wear some orange to represent my brother Be Healed. May he rest in peace as well. Actually, he was killed over here in Minneapolis. But when you speak about public safety, you think about things that we have to do, because I'm of the belief that if you don't have certain things in life, public safety is going to be hard to come by. If you don't have housing, you don't have economic development, you don't have education, I don't care who you is, what you look like, or where you're at, it's going to be dead bodies, because that animal nature comes out. So speaking about public safety in the aspect of the violence that's going on in our community, we want it to stop. There are some things, initiatives that you believe that we should be pushing, or some things that you are doing out there in the loop right now to try to help curb the violence.
Well, one of the things we're doing is we're creating learning circles for us as Black men in our communities to, number one, walk the block. We talked about buy the block. Talking about walking the block, be present, be there for our young people to talk about and talk through some of these challenges, because anger is going to happen, right? Rage is going to happen, but how do you deal with that? How do you work through that? Yeah. And the other thing,
it seems like we lost the audio. I can hear it a little bit, but it's not. I can't hear it as well. Sorry, brother Crawford.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you a little bit now.
Okay.
Go ahead.
And the other thing is, as we talk about our own health and wellness, the things that we're doing in our community, I'll repeat it again, is we are walking the block. We talked about the importance of buying the block. We are walking the block, creating opportunities where we are walking through our communities so our kids and families know who we are and we know who they are. And understanding that anger and rage is going to happen, just as you pointed out, but how do you deal with that in a healthy way?
Exactly. Brother Crawford, once again, like I said, I'm very appreciative of you for having this call. I think it was important for us as we set out to do this mission, United Black Legislative Gents, to make sure that we're not just focusing on Minneapolis, but understanding that we got Black folks out there in the loop too. And we got Black folks all throughout the state of Minnesota, over 300,000, really upwards of 500,000 if you include some or other people as well. So, over 300,000 people in here around the state of Minnesota. And as I said, the goal of this conversation is to build out that criteria. You came here today and you spoke about 3 things that you felt was important in blue: housing, education, and public safety. With housing, we said we're going to try to buy a block. With education, we said we need more accessibility, and we got to be able to hold these schools accountable if our children are graduating right. And then the public safety, getting up there and walking the block. So, Brother Crawford, I want to thank you for coming on. I'll give you the last 30 seconds just to say anything that you want to say to our community, or anything you have upcoming in any way to reach you.
the last thing I want to say is, you want to talk about this more, is register to vote. I think during this summer, we can plan barbecues in our own communities, in our backyards, to talk about the candidates who are running for office. So you are informed when you go to the poll. Don't just pick the incumbent or the name that you know. Be informed. Make the right decision. So plan a barbecue to get out and vote and learn who's running for office and how do they speak to the things that are important to you. So I want to thank you so much for choosing to be with us this morning. I'm excited and encouraged to be a part of this movement, and many blessings to us, to you all. And I want to encourage us to continue to move forward and reach back and lift us all. Thank you, UBLA, for your work today, and many blessings to you all.
Any blessings to you as well, brother. Any blessings to you as well.
All right, now we'll go back to Al Flowers for our next part of the segment.
Okay, I just want to say, if you want to go to Al McFarlane website, you can see it. You can see this, and if you go to Minnesota Organizing for Change, you can see it. You can go to Facebook, loiscampbell.org, and you can see this conversation. Our next person up that's gonna come and give us a message is the Minnesota Senate president, the first African-American Senate president of the state of Minnesota, a strong advocate of getting things back to the state, to us around the state. And so to have to get a couple of a message from the senator is gonna be a great, that's gonna be great. And so, but you can go to Al McFarlane at website. You can go to Minnesota Organizing for Change and get all this information about what we are doing about the UBLA and the United Black Legislative Agenda. So I'm gonna step right out and get right to it. And coming up after that will be Mayor April Graves of Brooklyn Center, and then after that it'll be Mayor Hollis Winston. So we trying to rotate it. And again, I want to thank the Urban League President, CEO Michael Stevens for being here and being a part of this. So I'm gonna turn it back over to those facilitators, AJ Flowers and Mount Wilson, to talk to our Senate President of the Minnesota State Senate, Bobby Joe Champion.
All right, good morning and welcome, Senator Champion. How are you doing?
Well, first of all, let me say good morning to you. Good morning to you. I just heard that interview that you all did. I thought that was an extraordinary interview. We'll start to put you a media guy right now. So it's great. Thank you for having me this morning.
Absolutely, thank you for being here. So let's just jump right into it. If you want to take a moment to briefly introduce yourself.
Well, you know, I want to thank Al Flowers for that warm introduction. Most folks know that I am president of the Minnesota Senate. I've been president for 4 years. I, like others, up for re-election, but I represent as senator North Minneapolis, North Loop, a portion of downtown, and a portion of Southeast. It's a very diverse district, but I was born and raised in North Minneapolis. My parents are from the South. I always say that because that's important to me, that Southern lineage. My mom is from Hooks, Texas, and my dad is from Hope, Arkansas. And let me just tell you this right now. No, they didn't know Bill Clinton. I say that right now. So, but I am a proud product of the Minneapolis Public Schools. I am a proud Polar. And then I went on to McAllister College, and then I also went to law school. So I am a person who practices law every day. So as you know, most people think of the legislature as a part-time legislature, but it's really not a part-time legislature. We are all year, all the time. There's always something to be done. So proud father, my sons, One is a clinical therapist, and the other and he has the master's from the University of Minnesota, but he went to school also in Colorado. And then my other son, Miles, I know, like really?
It's a double name, a good name.
Good name, right? Miles is going to be graduating with his master's in finance. So he's right now working for KPMG. So I'm proud of them. And so
amazing.
I'm just a proud dad, you know, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's jump right into some of the areas of focus areas for the UBLA. With one of those areas being policy. And I just want to get your take on policy at the state level. As mentioned, as Al mentioned in his introduction, that the state Senate president, being one of the highest ranking officers and elected officials in the state. That's a major feat. You mentioned that you're from North Minneapolis, born and raised, and kind of going through the ranks. Now, talk a little bit, if you might, about growing up in Minneapolis, the educational challenges to get to where you are at.
You know, one of the things that I'll say is two things. One, I'm a proud Northsider, as I mentioned, born and raised in North Minneapolis. And growing up, I had the benefit of going to places like Away. Of course, during that era of time, going to church was important. Right. You know, now we're in one of the most unchurched generations right now. Mm-hmm. But church was important because not only were you getting spiritual nourishment at church, but you were also engaged in political understandings, right? Because the Black church has been the pillar and the cornerstone of the civil rights movement and every other movement before that. Even if you go back to when our people were enslaved, gathering around church or some form of faith was important. So growing up in North Minneapolis, that didn't change. So I had the benefit of understanding the importance of, let's say, Martin Luther King's birthday or in Juneteenth. These are all things I learned about before it became vogue or popular, right? We were being taught by Mahmoud El-Kati and Spike and all the others the importance of our heritage. So that helped me when I think in terms of education, because we started education understanding the importance of African American history before others started talking about it being important. We were being taught it. So when I was in school, I didn't see anyone that looked like me in the history books, but I had the benefit of growing up in a community where they made sure that our history was front and center, right? And so no matter what the challenges were, we were able to understand the importance of education and the importance of our ability to get through. Now, here's the one thing that I will say, and this is not unique to me. I also heard Michelle Obama say this, that when she was in high school and getting ready to graduate, like me, I said, hey, I want to go to college. And I was the first person in my family, you know, in order to go to college. But the counselor said to me, well, you should go to a VOTEC or something. You shouldn't go to college. Not that I didn't have the ability, but that was stated and that was said. So Michelle Obama said the same thing. So what that led me to understand is that no matter where you were, kids like us were being redirected someplace else, not based on our aims and aspirations and dreams, but sometimes the limited understanding and the limited expectations that they had of us. Now, had I listened to that counselor, I wouldn't have gone to McAllister College. Right. I would not be a lawyer today. Right. I would not be in the Senate today. Right. I would not be president of the Senate. Right. So just think about some of the things that were said to us. So I always say that I'm the example of what is possible. Absolutely. Right. So it's not as if I'm, you know, my own unique person and that I have different blood than anyone else. Now, I will say this because I'm going to give credit to Spike, who's here as well, because I believe in giving credit where credit is due. I was one of those kids because I was the fifth out of six kids. I had challenges as well. When I was younger, I had a stuttering problem. And I always was challenged by that. And so that sort of influenced my own view of myself. And so I would always say these words, I can't. Right. So no matter what they said to me, oh, I can't do that. And then they would say, hey, why don't you do it? Oh, I can't do that. But it was some trusting adults who decided that they were not going to let me say I can't anymore.
Yeah.
So the story is, if I can verify this, is that Spike and Aura and all the others got together and said, we're not going to let him keep saying he can't. We're going to make him say what he has the ability to do.
That's right.
Right? And so when I would say, I can't, they say, oh, no. We're not listening to that. You can. And I started changing my language, and therefore I started changing my own view of myself. So having trusted adults and a community who understands you, that's important. And so here's the last thing I'll say about this, because then you will tell me, stop giving these long answers. Right?
No.
That also was political as well.
Mm-hmm.
We were learning at a young age the importance of civil unrest, our history, what they were telling us we could not do. I remember going to Washington, D.C. before Martin Luther King's birthday was a holiday. Stevie Wonder was constantly gathering us, people from all across the country, to protest and say Martin Luther King should have a birthday. That's why Stevie Wonder did that song, Happy Birthday to You. And so I remember going there, we're on a bus, I'm a little chap looking around, and I see Stevie Wonder. I'm like, Stevie Wonder's right there, right? I remember running around the Capitol just so I could get a glimpse of him getting in that limousine.
Mm-hmm.
And I got back there in time, and I said, Stevie Wonder. And he just said, hey. And I was like, oh my God. Stevie Wonder. But it's the political stuff, right? We were understanding the importance of our vote. So we understood about Fannie Lou Hamer. We understood about all the others, right? And so that just instilled in me a sense of possibility.
Absolutely. And I think that, growing up in North Minneapolis as well, I think that's a big part of inspiration to keep the community going forward is yourself. Like you mentioned, showing that you're the possibility, showing that you are the example, leading by example. I think about the community and how everybody sees you. So I know that you probably get a ton of calls all the time. Like you said, it might be a part-time job, but it's not really a part-time job because everybody's saying, oh, call Senator Champion. I know they refer to you as different things depending on the relationships with you. So, but that kind of, like you mentioned, it's the strength of community, the education piece, as we heard from AJ and Mr. Crawford in the last interview, talking about a lot about education. And based off a study, there was a study that says that 25% of Black kids are underprepared for the next level post high school. And there's a lot of challenges that we see in that, whether it's financial support, whether it's literacy, whether it's accessibility, growing up. For me, I didn't see myself going to, for example, like an HBCU because I never really traveled to these areas to explore those regions. And so I settled for, what I still appreciate my college experience, but settled for Minnesota State University down in Mankato. But that was the distance I would go to the colleges. So I think that piece that you mentioned about the power of the tongue, which is creates the power of the mind. If you say it, then you can think it and you can achieve it. But I wanted to kind of dive a little bit deeper into policy. So at the Capitol, as president, as we were talking about the UBLA, and the UBLA has these 7 areas. Policy is one of those key pieces. We have AJ and I, the UBLA, Minnesota's Organizing for Change, have been up to Capitol this last session, actually quite a lot. We bring to each other quite a lot. And that was an eye-opening experience for myself, to sit there and have discussions. You're bouncing around, kind of like a rat race, almost what it feels like. You're trying to catch legislators in passing, trying to make several appointments. For you, as you mentioned, you're up for re-election, what are some of the areas that you see that are going to be pivotal going into next legislative session?
I think that's a very good question. And so let me kind of put it in context this way. So like you, I went to McAllister, but I always wanted to go to Morehouse.
Right. Yeah.
And in fact, when I talked about wanting to go to Morehouse, and my mom and dad were like, we can can't pay for you to go across the street, so you're not going to Atlanta.
Exactly.
Right? And so I always knew that I wanted to be a Morehouse man. So I'm always envious of others who are Morehouse men or those who have gone HBCUs. So let me say this as far as policy. I really do think your own experiences also influence the policy that you really fight for. I remember being first elected and someone asking me this question: what is your number one priority for the legislative session? And I would always respond by saying, I don't have the benefit of having one priority. I have several priorities because there's so much that my community needs. Sure. So when you think in terms of what's important to me, housing is important to me, because I think that housing is a right, not a privilege, that we need to make sure that home ownership is something that can happen, as well as that we have affordable housing options, right? And so I think that's important. I've also been had the benefit of helping build wealth, with 9,000 equities and also down payment assistance. I heard that talked about earlier. We have put forward and have pushed down payment assistance so that there can be home ownership, because it's crazy if Minnesota is behind Mississippi when it comes to home ownership. So we need to continue to do something about it. Education. I heard you talk about education. Do you not know that in the state of Minnesota, we now have the North Star Act, which means that kids can go to school for free. If their parents make $80,000 or less, they don't have to worry about whether they can afford it or not, right? And so we have the North Star Act, but it also gets something else that you said: be underprepared. We have made certain, and we'll continue to make certain, that the Minneapolis public schools and other public schools across the state have the resources that they need in order to make sure that they're meeting the needs of their students. Right. We as a state give the money to the district, and that's why you have district elected folks who are supposed to make sure that the money is being used in a way that benefits the area, right? So that's why funding is there, even for teachers of color. We have talked about the importance of growing teachers of color, because guess what? Kids do better when they see trusted people or people who look like them. So representation matters. We've also made sure that there is more money and funding available for special education. We call it a cross subsidy, because the federal government is supposed to pay something, the state's supposed to pay something, and it always falls by the wayside. It's also for teachers and mental health counselors. Jobs, you talked about that earlier. I believe the best social program is a job. Yeah. Right? Making livable wages, not a minimum wage. See, to me, there's a difference in that language, because even when we pass a minimum wage bill, even if you pass it, people are still going to be in poverty. Right. We always need to push folks having a family sustaining wage. So that's why I also put forth the Promise Act. This past session, I put forth $100 million bill in order to help those who were affected by Operation Mental Surge, that did not pass because the Republicans and others said that we would not pass it if you're not willing to do something different with paid family and medical leave. Even public safety, that's important. That's going to continue to be an issue. Guns. I heard him talking about guns. We had a bill that was a comprehensive public safety bill around, banning military-style weapons, high-capacity weapons, making sure that you get guns out of the hands of people who should not have them. Mental health services, because if you look at a vast number of the folks who are in prison or who are in jail, they are having some mental health challenges that must be addressed in real time. School safety. Yeah, we need to make sure our kids are going to school and that they're safe. So that there's a cross section of things that's important to me, along with healthcare. Look at what's happening in Washington, D.C. They're cutting Medicaid, Medicare. We as a state are trying to backfill the resources that it takes in order to make sure that these things happen. Here's another thing that I believe is important. Policy. You asked me, so I'll just tell you. Yep. Civics 101 is important. I heard you all talking about that earlier today when you say sometime one elected tells you, no, that's not what I do, that you got to go there. That happens. Right. And you know why that happens? Is because sometimes we go to the wrong people in order to get a question answered or get a matter dealt with, and then they do have to say that. And I'll tell you, I'll give you a real life example of where this became really clear. And no disrespect to anyone who did this, I'm only highlighting something. Remember the unfortunate death of Orlando? Yes, Jim. guys still?
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
Remember there were protests, right?
Mhm.
And do you remember where those protests happened?
Governor's mansion.
Governor's mansion, right? But why? Governor had nothing to do with that. You know who really controlled the police department? The mayor of Falcon Heights.
Right.
So when they were protesting at the governor's mansion, the person who you should have been protesting in front of got a chance to just sit at home and not be worried at all because no one was demanding anything from him. That's just understanding that. And that's not disrespectful for us. So I started doing, even in my town hall meetings, Civics 101. I play games so that people understand where you would have to go because knowledge is power. It is not to be disrespectful. So voting matters. Who you vote for matters. Policies that we get through and those that don't get through matters based on who's at the table, because if you're not at the table, then you're on the menu. And to me, one of the challenges is sometimes when I see in social media, we try to do this false equivalency. Right? Like, for example, I'm here with no disrespect. I'm just using this as an example. Someone says, oh, now the Republicans have a black a black person that they nominated for a governor, right? Oh, a black person. But not all black people are equal. If we were just looking at a black person alone, then what about Clarence Thomas?
Right.
Why are we acting like all black people are equal? They're not equal. This is still a black person who's on the GOP ticket who wants Trump's endorsement. And the last time I understood this, Trump said that he did not like and continues to dismantle diversity, equity, and inclusion.
That's right.
So to me, what are we talking about? And when we promote those things, it is detrimental because we end up misleading our people. Because now we get them to do the very thing that you said that they shouldn't do, which is just say, oh, the person's black. I'm just going to put that right there. No. You got to ask some questions, not just vote. But why are you voting for this person? What are they doing? What has their history demonstrated or shown us in real time? So to me, there's those things. And last but certainly not least, I'm gonna say this.
We supposed to wrap you up like
Okay, but you don't have me coming. Listen, don't have me coming.
I was gonna do it. I had to say it, brother. They didn't tell us to go ahead. You said the president, baby.
Wrap up, buddy.
No, but thanks enough.
Here's my last comment. The reason why voting matters is because bad officials are elected when people don't vote. And if voting was not important, why would they work so hard in order to prevent us from voting? If you just know that alone. If I wasn't at the table with someone else, would we have Juneteenth at a state recognized holiday right now? Because of the work I've done. The Crown Act, Office of Murdered and Missing Black Girls and Women. A restoration of voting rights, the Minnesota Voting Rights Act, driver's license for all, or even the economic development stuff. When you go see Neon new building there, that's because of work that I've done.
Right.
Along with North Commons, we used to go to North Commons. Now I love the work that we've done there at North Commons, V3, Urban League. They called me at the last minute, but I will say that, but they were like, hey, we need money for these job program. And guess what? I was in there fighting and finding a way to get it done and the power of people. My point is, I don't have the benefit of just identifying one or two priorities because there's so much our community needs. And I'm willing to be at the table because it is important to me. And it's my responsibility to also deal with reparations. I see Thomas back there. We've been, tussling over this reparations language and what it should look like and sound like. But I'm thankful to Al and the Thomases and the Spice and the Reverend McAfee's and others and you guys, because I see you at the Capitol, at least come and engage and ask the question. So thank you. Voting matters. Who you have at the table matters. And Al, if you don't want me, Al Senior, if you don't want me to speak my truth, then don't call me, mister.
Mr. Champion, we thank you for coming on. I think it's very important to have you on here. and giving us the time we had. You know, we at the end of the day, I wasn't finna stop it. I was on there to keep going. I
know who my friends are, Rob.
Yeah, you had a lot to get to, and I knew you said, "Oh, wait a second, we talked about this. Let me get to that." So that's very important. I want to thank you for coming up here. As we keep this program moving, because you said something that's very important. And as I said from the very beginning, it's not just about getting out to vote. It's creating the criteria of what you're voting for. So you're not just voting for anybody because they're black or because you know them. They have to give you a criteria. You have to create your agenda, and hopefully if they meet those criteria, that's how you earn your vote. So I want to thank you, Mr. Champion, for coming on today as we go through this conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you again.
Thank you, Miles.
Absolutely.
So we're gonna keep it flowing. While we keep it flowing, I want to give a big shout out to Diversity Media Group for helping us stream this right here. I want to give a shout out to Los Campos. I want to give a shout out to Savvy Eateries for bringing some food up here. Everybody that's here. So I just want to give a shout out to the people that's here and the people that's helped us really get it accomplished. We're gonna keep going, moving straight on. We're gonna go to April Graves next, correct? And that is our Brooklyn Center Mayor, April Graves. We have you on.
Yeah, I'm here.
No, she don't.
I only have 5 minutes left, so I had a hard stop at 10:30. So
I'm sorry.
The next speaker ready to go. Maybe it'd be better to just get back on time and not let that person maybe have a shorter duration.
You said you had somewhere to be. I'm sorry, man. They just came up.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, say again.
I said, well, I've been waiting, but I have to get off at 10:30, so now I only have like 4 minutes, and so I'm wondering if maybe the next person is already waiting, rather than having the time go into their time. Maybe we could just skip over me and go to that next person.
Well, I don't want to skip over you. I would like to take advantage of those 4 minutes that we do got. Sorry about that. That conversation did go a little longer, but if you can just explain some of the things. That you're doing out there, you can get on board with before you get off, and we move on to our next speaker.
Okay. Well, yeah, obviously we want to get everybody out to vote. Right now, this year, there's an election for mayor and 2 council seats. I'm not running for re-election. So there's several candidates on the ballot. I encourage folks to learn about who they are and support the ones that align with their values. Some of the things that I think are really important to Brooklyn Center and that should be considered, and who the candidates you choose to support are, is the work that we've done in Brooklyn around tenant protections. So there definitely is some pressure coming from outside business owners and landlords about our tenant protection ordinance, and there has been a push to try to roll back some of those protections, and we have some of the strongest ones in this state. So I think that candidates that support our tenant protections are going to be really important to have in not just election, but hopefully on the council moving forward. There's also been a lot of work that we've done with small businesses and entrepreneurs in the city. In fact, one of the reasons I have to hop off quickly is to go and support the young entrepreneurs in our city at a local Shark Tank that we've been doing for several years, encouraging our entrepreneurs at a young age and then supporting our small businesses in every way that we can, especially earlier this year during Operation Metro Surge. But even before that, we've had programs around sides. We've had a small incubator space next to our municipal liquor store. And I do think that there's a lot more work that needs to happen there because, our small businesses are the lifeblood of our city. It takes the burden of the taxes off the residents. And I think it's even more important for our local small businesses and entrepreneurs because that's where the money stays in the community instead of being shipped off to, corporations that don't care and don't reinvest in our communities. I'd also say, obviously, public safety work is very important. Since I first joined the council in 2015 to now, when I started, we didn't have community engagement staff, we didn't have communication staff, and now we have both of those things as well as the Office of Community Prevention, Health, and Safety, which is really about investing in upstream solutions to, public safety and violence issues in the city. And all three of those things have kind of been under fire as the council has struggled with finances. some more conservative council members think those things are fluff and they don't see the value in upstream solutions. So I think all of those things are really important. They need to be protected. We need to have electeds in office that understand the needs of the community and are willing to listen, and hopefully help build more understanding across those differences. Those are kind of the main things that kind of are on my mind right now as I finish out these last 6 months in office. It's year 12 since I've been on the council while also working full time for the city of Minneapolis. And so I'm planning on continuing to show up just in a different capacity with a different title and with a little bit less of a box around what I can say, how I can say it, and worry about kind of always having to meet people where they're at, which isn't, I think, necessarily a bad thing. I think it's important, especially when you're in a position that needs to be uniting people when there's already so much divisiveness. But I also think that there's a role and there's a need for people who can stand up, can organize in community, can build the mutual aid networks, and can say, you know, whether the government helps us do it or not, we're going to get it done. And so I'll leave it at that, and appreciate you guys taking the time to have me on the show and put together this legislative agenda.
No, we thank you so much, and as I said, we apologize for the way some of the timing worked out. We do appreciate you running. If you can you tell us some of the candidates that is running out there since you're not seeking re-election?
I'm sorry, I missed that question.
I said, if you tell us some of the candidates that is running out there since you're not seeking re-election, some of the candidates that's running out there, so people can do the research on the candidates that's out there now, if there has been.
Yeah, I have actually endorsed this current council member, Mayor Pro Tem on the council, Tanisha Cragnis, Dr. Tanisha Cragnis. I endorsed her for the next mayor, so I'm hoping that people will support her. She's been on the council, this is her 4th year. She's, I think, learned a lot in those 4 years. There's been plenty of things that we're still navigating, and over the last year and a half, she's been my Mayor Pro Tem, and so I've been having her fill in for me in a couple different circumstances. She's got a team around her, and I think, you know, she's going to link up with some other candidates that are like-minded, and I'm confident that they'll be successful. There's a couple other council members that are running for re-election, well, or one other council member that's running for re-election to the council, and then there's a slew of new people that are running for the city council, and actually I think that's great. I love seeing the diversity of more candidates. I wish that 2 years ago, when I was halfway through my term, there were that many diverse people that had decided to run. That would have been really helpful to me if they had been able to get on the council earlier. But I'm happy to see it happen. You know, when I first ran in 2015, I was only the second person of any color that had ever served in the Brooklyn Center City Council, and there was not a lot of other diverse candidates on any of the councils, the surrounding cities, or even really in the Twin Cities. And since I started on the council in 2015, I've seen that change a lot. I mean, representation matters, but so does what those people are actually about. So be careful to do your research. Sometimes people say things, and then you look back at like what they've actually been practicing, and you won't see that there was actually any true integrity there. So I don't really want to drop anybody else's name currently because I haven't been any, you know, other endorsements, and that could be kind of conceived that or perceived that way. But I would just say, you know, do your research, listen, and also recognize like when somebody is being authentic to themselves, or whether they just might be trying to tell you what they think you want to hear, because there's a lot of that too.
Well, thank you so much, April. Like I said, you know, you set the trend. That's how you can look at it. It's more people running because they see, once they see it, they can believe it. So I want to thank you for getting on here. As I said, once again, we apologize for kind of the time lapse, but I think you gave us some great information, and we look forward to having more conversations with you as we build out this United Black legislative agenda. Is there anything that you want to leave people with before we get off?
I just want to say that with the comment about the mayors control the police, like that might be true in some cities, but I think it's important to recognize sort of the different types of city governance that are happening. So I even just was seeing today, somebody was discussing this in St. Paul, and they talked about the importance of recognizing that there's a city manager or a city coordinator. And a lot of time the administration, the operational administration are people that are making the decisions. At least myself, I know I don't give direction specifically to my police chief or my police department. I talk to the city manager, and the city manager is the only employee that the city council hires, period. That and basically like our city attorney. So anybody else within the city is kind of under purview of the city manager. And I think that there's a need for folks to know kind of how government is set up. Recognize too that like a lot of the smaller cities like Brooklyn Center, Brooklyn Park, you know, the first ring suburb cities, unless they have a really big city budget, like, you know, a big tax base, most people are basically volunteering on the council, you know. The council of Brooklyn Center makes about $10,000 a year, and the mayor makes about $12,000 a year. So it's very, very minimal amount of money. It's not a full-time job, and all of us have to also work full-time jobs. A lot of the time, that's true for our state reps too. Don't make enough money to really have that be their only job. They have second jobs as well. So I don't know. I think a lot of people don't realize that, and they don't recognize how much of a kind of a sacrifice it can be. But I think more people should know, and hopefully more people will also step up.
Yes. Well, thank you.
All right, take care, guys.
Thank you so much for coming on. We got to keep it going. We're going to go into our next guest if we have him on. Is Brother Hollis, are you on here right now? Mayor Hollis. And while we at, once again, I want to give a huge shout out to my diversity media group, Los Campos, Inside News, Organized for Change, the UBLA, the NAACP for letting us, for giving us this building that we're hosting this conversation in right now, and everybody that's spoken. I want to give a huge shout out to everybody that's here, Mr. Spike Moss, Bethel, our UCMT, some of the people that showed up here. Alicia Smith just showed up here to be here for us today. So I just want to thank all those people that's here as we keep this conversation rolling. We'll move right forward to Mayor Hollis Winston, the mayor of Brooklyn Park. Mayor Winston, how you doing?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can hear you.
All right. Yeah. Sorry. I don't know how much time. Yeah. How long do you guys want me to speak? So another event.
Yes. We are looking for you to speak.
Okay. So, well, thank y'all for having me. I think I was asked to speak to two particular topics within the UBLA. And forgive my name, it's not Latrice Winston, it's Hollis Winston, but I'm using a Zoom that we both use. So I can kind of speak about the economic development / jobs portion, and then the public safety portion. And I'll start with kind of how I see politics and Black community and the outcomes, and that'll lead into why how I see public safety and how I see economic development. So I think one of the things that before you keep going, is there a way you can turn your phone so that yes, that's vertical? Can you see me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. I just wanted you to turn your phone so that we can get a full screen camera of you. If not, it's okay. You can keep going.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I'm in the passenger seat driving somewhere. So when people talk about African American communities specifically, the first thing they always want to talk about is two things. They want to talk about what they perceive as a higher rate of crime, and then they want to talk about lower educational opportunities. And the reality is, not opportunities, but lower educational outcomes. And often, especially with, I'm not going to get overly political, with specific science, they assume that those outcomes are just tied to who we are as an ethnicity and as a people. But when you look around the world and you do the research sociologically, politically, wherever you look, it doesn't matter what your race is, it doesn't matter what your ethnicity is. If you have lower access to economic opportunities, right? Or if you have lack of access to economic networks that generate wealth, or that can put you in a specific job. From that follows lower educational outcomes. From that follows different types of crime. And so when I got into office, I had that premise of the things that you see within the African American community are not directly tied to our race, aside from the discrimination that we have faced historically within this country. We've been redlined, we've shut out of economic opportunities, right? And we were often shut out of educational opportunities as well that would get us into networks. generate wealth. So the other piece is this, is that a black child, and this is how I'm going to get to public safety, a black child can be headed in the right direction, right? Education. They can be super sharp, they can be a straight student, and then they can end up with the wrong interaction with the law. And now instead of heading towards a job, they're in the school to prison pipeline. And so my job when it comes to our community in particular is to say, how do I change the opportunities we have? The first thing that I think is important that needs to be done, not just within the city of Brooklyn Park, we're doing a lot of this work. We can always improve. But one thing that we need to see is, the police, we know our relationship with the police, and it hasn't been a good relationship since slave times, right? And so we know that if we can have alternative response teams that can de-escalate situations, we have community intervention teams that can de-escalate situations, whether it's mental health, whether it's getting upstream, whether youth dealing with particular issues, where they never have to interact with the police, right? We keep kids, we keep brothers moving in the right direction. So we know so on our children, especially African-American boys. So for my job is to say, how do I create the system within the system that does not put our children within the place of the police? That is not something within the purview of the police. That's not something that should just be going on in Brooklyn Park. There needs to be a heavier emphasis across not just Minneapolis and St. Paul, but the entire state. Because a suburban black kid, where people realize they're not, is often just at risk for more risk of being involved with the police, because the police will single that child out and get them into the system if you don't have certain systems in place. So my approach to public safety is, I don't want to create a system, a school to prison pipeline. I want to create a school to work or school to entrepreneurship pipeline. When it comes to economic opportunities, we need to create massive economic opportunities within our community. So I can tell you what we're doing within the city of Brooklyn Park, and then I can tell you what I would like to see across areas where we are concentrated. So within Brooklyn Park, we have about 750 acres of undeveloped land. 250 acres of that, we went to the state and we said, we want to make this a biotech district. If you look at where Brooklyn Park is located, from Plymouth all the way through Fridley or Coon Rapids, we have a bunch of med tech companies. Brooklyn Park's in the middle of that, so we want to be the center for all of that. If you go to Rochester, they've got Mayo Clinic. Mayo Clinic didn't happen just because the folks up there are smarter. Mayo Clinic happened because the state said, this is going to be destination medical, and we're going to put all of our many of our resources towards making this the best hospital in the entire world. And they did that. So we said, okay, you got to see that 65% people of color. We want this to be the biotech district. The state said, okay, we'll make it the biotech district. We'll give you financial incentive to get businesses there. The next step is, because we know what happens, there's a bunch of economic opportunity created, and then black folks are left out. The things we're doing as a city is we said, we've got a Brooklyn program where we train youth, and we say, you don't got to be a straight A student. You just got to want it. So we train students to take those biotech jobs when they come, and we train them to be able to take management level jobs throughout the city in maybe corporate headquarters or places within the city, right? And that's a program that we're always getting more money to. We're going to look to increase dollars to that, so that a kid who never had an opportunity, his family never had an opportunity, or her family never had an opportunity, now they get to work in a place that says, you got 2-year associates, you're going to make $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year, right? You're going to meet your wife or husband there. Now you're a family that's making $140,000, $160,000 a year. You know the educational outcomes that will come from that. The other piece is this. Aside from the 5,000 to 10,000 jobs we want to create, we're talking about 3,000 housing units. Those 3,000 housing units, if I'm 60 to 65% people of color, what should the ownership rate be for the development that occurs within that area? Whether it's townhomes or whether it's people building these big apartment complexes. Must be 60 to 65%. People own that. Because we're going to employ each other. We're going to have an ownership stake. We're going to create wealth, and we're going to turn around and we're going to take care of our communities, right? So the other fight for me, and I've been trying to get black developers on board, I've been trying to get POC developers, but I've been trying to get black developers on board, if y'all agree what I'm saying, and it's getting the word out there that there's this opportunity, and the city is looking for ways to create opportunities for people to invest in the city. It's a win-win situation, right? For living, and the last thing I leave off from my city is this. If I look at Bloomington versus Brooklyn Park, Bloomington is maybe a few thousand bigger. There's a good chance that Brooklyn Park is going to pass within the next 10 years. Bloomington has $3.5 billion more, so they've got about $5.5 to $5.7 billion in commercial property values. Brooklyn Park has $2 to $2.5 billion. So there's anywhere from a $3 billion to $3.5 billion difference between my city and that city. So you look at the educational outcomes and you look at what we can do as a city in terms of tax revenue, we're limited. That means that I'm looking to create $3 billion to $3.5 billion of value in my city within the next 10 to 20 years. And what I'm telling folks is 60% of that or 70% of that should go to the communities that are dominant within the city of Brooklyn Park. But if you look at that model across the entire state, when we talk about economic value, yes, we should be asking for dollars to help entrepreneurs. Yes, we should be asking for dollars to help get people a house. But on the north side, there should be politicians, aside from me, saying, I want $1 to $1.5 billion investment on the north side. I want a black kid to grow up on the north side. I want them to get a 2 years associate's degree. I want them to be able to get $8,000 a year job, putting together MedTech or whatever it is, and then one day they're going to be in management when they're 35 years old, and they're going to be making 200 to 250K. That is a model that should happen in Brooklyn Park, should happen in Brooklyn Center, it should happen in North Side, it should happen in certain parts of South Side. It should happen in the Round Up area. So rather than going and asking for smaller checks or handouts, we should be asking for major investment within our communities. And at the same time, the training to get our youth those particular jobs and to get single mothers, to fathers that are starting out, to get people that are switching careers. We should be getting the training to get them in those jobs as we create those jobs. So a little bit of a tirade, but that is the vision that I see changes the economic outcomes for black folks. It changes the outcomes for some of the violence we build in our own communities. And it changes the structure of our families because we've got stable families, right? And of course, those educational outcomes that people want to think are built into our community, it gives families the opportunity to have tools, to have have one job where she can focus on to speak to, and that's the general vision that I have.
Thank you. No,
You laid out there. I think, yeah.
full plan.
Yeah.
No, but I appreciate that insight. I mean, because as you talked about a lot of things, I mean, what I was hearing was the connectivity from public safety, housing, what that looks like for the economic development, the workforce, and the youth coming up. Specifically in Brooklyn Park, and it sounds like you have a plan.
So I don't know if that was a question, but the echo, I can't, it's hard for me to hear the echo.
Oh, is there an echo?
Yeah, I don't want if you let me see, if you put it in the chat, I don't know. I can read it there.
I don't. All right. So, Mayor Winston, you know, we appreciate your time for that insight that you gave us. Do you have any last words as we continue on to the remainder of the show?
So that you said last word. My last word would be this: is Minnesota has a great deal of wealth in it, and so when white folks or certain communities want to point to the Minnesota miracle, right? That Minnesota miracle is based on two things: education and access to economic opportunities. So if you have economic opportunities, your parents have one job, they're doing well, then they can afford to focus on helping you with the educational opportunities and the network to get economic opportunities. So when black people are often looking at ourselves and criticizing ourselves, and criticizing our community, just realize that those opportunities and that network have been shut off. And so many of the things that we do, we're doing the same things that you see in communities that are struggling economically across the entire world. So what I would challenge our leadership, what I would challenge our politicians, including myself, our elected officials, and our community leaders, have a bigger vision than what Minnesota has been willing to give us and to give you. Black folks are everywhere are given equal opportunity. Generally, we outperform everyone around us. We don't know that. We don't always know our history. But when we are given an equal opportunity, we tend to fly. And we tend to create opportunities, not just for ourselves, for everyone around us. So we need to have bigger dreams, higher expectations of not just ourselves, because I don't think there's anything wrong with this. We need to have higher expectations of our leaders and their vision, and the leaders that say they represent us across the state. They need to be held accountable for these outcomes. Not tomorrow. They need to be held accountable this year, this election, right? Throughout the entire community in terms of what is the vision that you are going to give us? And what are you going to leave behind for my children? Because that's what matters.
Absolutely. Thank you again, Mayor Hollis Winston from Brooklyn Park. We want to thank you for your time, and we'll
move forward to the program. We have a message coming from one of our leaders within the community as we move on to our next guest, which will be Reverend Jerry McAfee.
Good morning. My name is Lisa Clark.
Yes, right.
Before I get started, I'd like to thank the United Black Legislative Agenda for opening the door to conversation about solutions, for outlining the disparities that we continue to experience in the African American community. I started this organization as an outcall for mothers, African American mothers and women, to step forward and talk about the issues that we are facing with our young children. It has progressed into being about family. We do a lot of work around our youth because that is the next generation. Those will be the messengers to be part of the Minnesotans organizing for change in the Black community. Our efforts are to change the narrative for our young people and their families, to offer wraparound services that will help them achieve and succeed in the success they so want. Our motto: you save the mother, you save the child. You save the father, you save the family. You save the family, you save the community. We cannot be successful if we're not doing all three things at the same time. Right now, we hire 50 youth every summer. We check in to make sure that their grades are on an up path, and we reward them for that hard work that they put in throughout the entire school year for academics and for sports. And we are now going to build their family. We will now be offering scholarships to one senior in our program every year moving forward. Thank you for giving me this time. I stand in support of the UBLA, but I stand more in support in having a discussion about solutions that will impact the future of our children and families. Have a blessed day.
Well, welcome back. And let me say we rounded this show out. Let me say something. We're really trying to do something here for the foundational Black community. A lot of people don't like us to say foundational Black, but when you look at the book and the disparities in the UBLA, it's about foundational Black and what's happening to this community, what's happening to the Black community when you can't say your name. I'm saying we can say our name, and that's what we are proving to do today. and I got we got three more interviews. And we got our city council member Pearl Warren coming up, NAACP Vice President Thomas Berry, because I want you to stay tuned, stay with us as we're trying to do this, as we're trying to put this together. Because we want to take it across the state of Minnesota and say our name, say the foundational Black name. Don't let nobody tell us, let's not be detoured, and let's figure out how we gonna get there and answer these 7 focus areas of disparity. And so I got none other than a person that's out in the community, that's been there, been doing it for decades. Pastor Jerry McAfee. I'm not gonna do no talking. He knows what these issues are. He knows what we're fighting against. It's about voting, registering our community. Because if we don't register, they don't listen to us, and things are going on right today. As we're having this conversation that's affecting the Black community and health care appeal, and in this book, when you see what we try to do, we talk about it all the time. Pastor McAfee, what is it? What we got to do to say get our name heard and stand up against some of the injustice?
Thank you, Al. In the place in which we sat, when I walked in, it's about the name. This is owned by the Episcopalians. When right down the street a couple of years ago, car accident, police is after someone, young man, head basically gets cut off and boom. Maybe 3 weeks ago, right up the street, 16-year-old boy is killed. And it's amazing to me that how we as a people have succumbed to a left-leaning move of white supremacy being defined as defining one's reality and then forcing us to live up under the definition. And so while we'll cry out and holler against MAGA, we'll say nothing against the radical left. What's amazing to me, beloved brother, is that the head of the Democratic Party right now is Ken Martin, and the one in the state is Rich Carlboom. Now I say this for historical sake because we need to know it. How do you scream at Alabama? How do you scream against Louisiana and Mississippi about trying to deny African Americans the right to vote and fair offices when y'all did the exact same thing when it came to the same-sex marriage thing that was on the ballot? But that's why y'all could continue to try to label McAfee, because we was in the meeting together. Then I asked them where the money was when it come to fighting the Republicans against voter ID that they was trying to put against us. And then it came back that the Democrats said if African Americans come out and vote, they might defeat the marriage amendment. And that's when I went on the offensive after them. And so they like to try to label me. And here's what's interesting. The black folk who are cowards, who succumb to that foolishness. Listen, one of the most important things in here right now, you'll miss it if you're not careful, is that coffee, that creamer, and that sugar. That pink lemonade, right on the back of it, it says blended. Nothing comes without agitation. Nothing. And what we want right now, we want unity and uniformity without any degree of agitation. That's why the Alfs and different people in the world will not come to those who they think are agitators. They'll say, well, we're jelly makers, but you tree shakers. Well, baby, you don't get the jelly without the tree being shook. And so to me, what we've got to do is start shaking the tree, stirring that bad boy up, because right now we're allowing the left to define our reality and then want to tell us, I mean, tell me this, why does Sam Hill with a black man want to vote? You've been lying to us for years, when all of the groups that's been voting have getting everything they want but us. You wanted same-sex marriage, you got it. Now you move from same-sex marriage, you added more alphabet every year. Now you done moved into transgenderism, you got that, but the black man is still where he is. And then y'all want to tell a black man like me, no, I'm not going to be quiet. That's the problem. We've been too quiet. Nobody wants to shake the tree. And some of you black organizations, how y'all going to talk to a black man like me about public safety when one of my guys saved somebody right around this time last year? They shot him 30 times, hit him 3 times. He shot back. They brought him up on charges. Mary did down. They gave it to the feds, and none of the black organizations said anything. How y'all going to talk to me? Come on now. We got the data on our effectiveness for public safety. Don't tell me y'all care about public safety. Hell, Charlie and them got the records on what we've done all across this state. So it's not something that we need to do. Here's what we got to be. Number one, churches, you need to stand up and get some kahunas. These white churches is lining up with the ELCA, the Methodist, and the Presbyterian. They're the ones who formed Isaiah, and now they're form the other little black preacher marks in that to try to come in our community as they set the agenda for us. This ain't the first time we've been poor. Our problem is not poor external. Our issue is we're poor internal. And when you got a people that's poor internal, they'll never have to take them to the back of the bus. They'll go themselves. If we stop right now and take a real look at what goes on in our community by our hand, not by the white man's hand. His hand might be in it, but by our own hands. We scared and don't want to hear us say what we need to do for ourselves. Y'all know that's they wanted to give a young boy 2 years who shot a black woman in Brooklyn Park 8 times, 1 in the head, and then got mad at us because we stood up and said that's wrong. Because they're down there, they've collected their own data. I went to the meeting, Al came through that meeting over that at the old Far building, where you got the academicians from the University of Minnesota, and they've done all of these studies on the formation of the human brain and what it takes when they get to that age and they don't know any better. So when it was all over with, I went to the woman who done the study. I said, when was the last time you've been on the block? Well, we haven't. So you mean to tell me you trying to set policy for my people and you just looking at a book and you ain't been on the block? Who in here don't know how we know how to play the system? I must be in the wrong place. Holler back at your boy, please. Let me put it on pause. Replay it. Who in here don't know how we as a people know how to play the system? Kill that black woman until we fought. And then they want to make us the fall guys because we saying if you let that boy out in 2 years, that's a badge of honor for him on the block. And so everybody's scared. So they tell us, don't y'all agitate. But then on the other hand, you tell everybody else, y'all do all the agitating y'all want, but y'all want us to hush. I'm telling you, a people that cannot save themselves is lost forever. Until we get these people out of our business and begin to make and design our own, we're going to forever be groveling at the table. Now, let me clarify that. Because don't you think for a minute that them government dollars is just theirs. Black man, black woman, understand this, that every time you stop at that gas station and you pay taxes, that's where the totality of the budget of the state come from. You got just as much a right to the programs as they do. They act like and treat us, and y'all might not want to hear But they treat us like niggas because we let them treat us like niggas. Because don't nobody want to fight anymore. Shh. Well, what has being quiet gotten us so far? What has being quiet gotten us so far? They yelling, they get everything they want, but they telling us be quiet. And just like that, well, Reverend, you just be quiet. Well, Reverend ain't gonna hush. You ain't got the strength to take enough for me to shut my mouth because you don't own me. I'm a free black man. I'll die a free black man. And anytime I speak and don't tell the truth, call me on it. Here it is and I'm through. If I lied against Ken Martin, if I lied against Richard Carlbone and the decisions they made to distort the African-American vote, tell them to call me on it publicly. Because the whole lot of other black folk was in that thing. So do they really care about us? What is it that they really for? I'm through.
Hey, and I'm through too. First I want to thank Pastor McAfee for keeping it real, and that's what we're trying to do with this conversation. This conversation gonna go around the state, and we gonna get it together and take this message because we want everybody to vote, but you got to know what you're voting for. You got to know what's happening in this person. And they put a whole Alfred Plazas out. They put my whole poor government name up there. But I'll let I'm gonna let it go here with that. But on the next one, and doing something different, it's Miles and AJ coming up. As we got the council member in here, council member Shamika Watson came up from St. Paul. Council member Pearl Warren is here, and I'm gonna ask AJ and Miles that we put 4. I think we could do 4. That put those council members up here together and let AJ and Miles do that. So we want, because when we go to St. Paul, then we ask Pearl, Councilmember Warren to go over there. We want the same treatment. We want treat us like we So that's what we want to do. The next interview. Thank Pastor McAfee for bringing that truth. And the next people you'll see will be Councilmember Warren, Councilmember Johnson, and AJ and Mouse will put the chairs up and take the mics. And I knew Reverend McAfee was gonna bring it for real, and I ain't have to say nothing because he's passionate about it. And we gonna win because I know we got God on our side. So the next guest coming up will be Councilmember Johnson in St. Paul and Councilmember Warren here. And I give it back to these guys that's been doing work. I so appreciate AJ and Miles and I appreciate Mark Anderson for what he's been doing. Then we got let's never forget Bill English and I want to still give Marquita, CEO and president of Urban League, a shout out. Because she's on this book is all about this book. So thank you, Pastor McAfee, and thank y'all. Here we'll get with our council people. We'll do a video. We're gonna do a video. Yes. We're going a video from Bishop Howe.
Greetings in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I am Bishop Richard D. Howard and support the 2026 United Black Legislative Agenda. For generations, faith leaders have stood at the intersection of ministry and justice. We have understood that while we push hope on Sunday, we must also work throughout the week to help create opportunities that strengthen families, neighborhoods, and communities. The United Black Legislative Agenda is a collaborative effort that brings together communities, organizations, advocacy groups, faith leaders, and concerned citizens around Minnesota to thrive. This agenda focuses on critical areas including economic development, employment, public safety, housing, education, health and wellness, and public policy. These are not abstract issues. These are the realities our families face every day. The effect where our children attend school, whether families can purchase homes, whether businesses can grow, whether communities feel safe, and whether every person has access to the resources necessary to live with dignity and purpose. The truth is that when one segment of our community struggles, we all feel the impact. But when communities are empowered, educated, healthy, and economically strong, everyone benefits. As people of faith, we believe every individual is created in the image of God and deserves the opportunity to reach their God-given potential. That belief compels us to support efforts that promote fairness, opportunity, accountability, and community investment. The United Black Legislative Agenda is not about division. It is about partnership. It is about bringing people together around solutions that can make a meaningful difference in the life of Minnesota families. I encourage pastors, community leaders, elected officials, and citizens across our state to learn more, stay engaged, and lend your voice to this important work. The church has never been called to sit on the sidelines. We have been called to be advocate for those whose voices are often unheard and to help create pathways of hope for future generations. Let's continue to stand together, pray together, work together, and advocate together until every family has the opportunity to flourish. That's the work before us. By the grace of God, we can accomplish it together. Together, we can build stronger families, stronger communities, and a stronger Minnesota. May God continue to bless our state, bless our community, and give us the wisdom and courage to pursue justice, equity, and opportunity for all. God bless. Greetings in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I am Bishop Richard D. Howard Jr., Senior Pastor of Shadow Temple.
Yeah, well, welcome back, everybody, to the Minnesota Organized for Change conversation centered around the United Black Legislative Agenda. I want to give a shout out to Bishop Howell for that message and that message to us about unity and coming together and the partnership that we're moving forward. I also want to give a big shout out to Pastor McAfee for giving us that words of wisdom and calling us out and telling us to step up more, which I feel as though we have to do. So I just want to give them both some shout outs. Let's keep this program moving and moving forward as we introduce our next two guests. A lot of them were spoken about a little bit earlier, so I'll give them both an opportunity to introduce themselves, and then we'll get into some of these questions. We got both of y'all, so we'll try to make sure we split it up as perfect as possible. We can start with you, Ms. Pearl.
How you beautiful people doing? I am Pearl Warren, Minneapolis City Council, Ward 5, North Side. I'm just honored to be here. Want to give and pay homage and respect to my elders who are here in the building, Spike and Elder Flowers, Elder English, you know, Reverend McAfee, Bishop Howell, all of these lovely individuals who have really instrumented the legacy work that we're here to discuss on today about moving forward. Newly elected in my role here with Minneapolis City Council. I was just elected in November of last year, but I am extremely passionate about safe, suitable, and sustainable housing, our economic development and infrastructure, our livability here in North Minneapolis, and our public safety is really, the core of the work that I'm doing currently now in City Hall. So glad to be here.
Thank you. You should make that comment.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for the invitation as well to just come out and come across the river. My name is Shaniqua Johnson, and I'm a council member in Ward 7, so on the east side of St. Paul. I was elected in 2023, so took office in 2024. So we're smack dead in the middle of our term. For folks that don't know, the city of St. Paul passed a ballot initiative to put the city elections on the same year as the presidentials. So I actually don't seek re-election or run for office again until 2028. So
wow.
We are a 5-year term council. But really, genuinely, I echo the same sentiments, right? Like I see a lot of faces whom I've seen in this work and in this space for years, and whose legs that I stand with and stand beside and stand on, because it was your work that really allowed for, the city of St. Paul to elect another Black woman to the city council. Prior to both myself and Councilmember Bowie being elected, there had only ever been one in St. Paul's history, and that was Debbie Montgomery. And so just really taking every opportunity that I have to also push forward what it's like to have not one, but 2 Black women in that space, and also to be intentional about what representation looks like across the city and asking questions that maybe we haven't asked before. I too am a pretty strong advocate for housing. I'm the first Black woman to chair the Housing Redevelopment Authority at the St. Paul City Council, because housing was truly my top priority. I represent a ward with, whose average income for a family of 4 is like $50,000. We know that that's not enough, but that's even more than what my residents are experiencing. And so we have all of the disparities right in the heart of my ward, but had never had a woman of color hold this seat. And so being able to do that has been honestly, it's like an honor, and also you have work to do. So yeah, let's say all of the city issues that are just really around like investment. We share a lot of the same commonalities. It's not the same neighborhood, but it definitely has some of the same tunes of just years and years of Passover, not necessarily intentionality around where our dollars went. A lot of families, a lot of children, a lot of people wanting to see representation and what it looks like, but basically wanting to boil down to like, hey, why does my street have potholes, but this area doesn't? Why are our schools underfunded, but this area is not experiencing that? Why is there a rec center and a swimming pool here in this neighborhood, but it's not in ours? And so just a lot of work. I worked in politics since I was 18, but this is my first time as an elected official.
Absolutely. Thank you. So let's kind of jump right into the topic that both of you have a passion about housing. Councilmember Warren, we're right here in your backyard. I've gotten to know you really well over the last year. And so for housing, we talked a lot about the gaps. We've heard a lot of conversation from past guests today talking about housing disparities and gaps. How, as a councilwoman, how are you looking to kind of tackle that issue in Ward 5 in our area? And I'll ask the same question to you here too, Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you for that question, Miles. Housing and attacking a lot of the disparities around housing is really preparing people and gearing them up for home ownership. Prior to sitting in this role with Minneapolis City Council, I had the privilege and opportunity of spearheading the Advancing Black Homeownership Program with Twin Cities Habitat for Humanity. But keeping programs and keeping that homeownership education alive and well, is really huge. And then the education even about rental and rental assistance, right? And people who are renting and what rights that they have, even as a renter, as you're preparing yourself for that next phase in life, because we, as Black folks, didn't come through the path of generational wealth where, my granddaddy's GI Bill paid off my daddy's house that I, then was able to live rent free and move. That wasn't our pathways, to generational wealth. So many of us are at this starting point where we're starting to build that generational wealth, and ending up with a lot more generational debt. Because, when we look at area median income and looking at $43,000 a year for Black folks here in North Minneapolis as being, the floor for AMI, and we know those measures and those metrics exist, and we're not working, fearlessly as a community to improve those income disparities and create access and opportunity to increase those narratives and create the opportunity around home ownership and land ownership and things like that. We're really providing a grave disservice to ourselves. So that educational component about who you are, what you have the ability to own, people say, well, home ownership is not for everybody. No, it is for everybody. You know what I'm saying? It is something for everybody, because if you can pay somebody else a mortgage and invest in somebody else, you can invest equally into yourself. So teaching people how to value themselves and their self-worth around that. But yeah, and then looking at, and that builds family sustainability, that builds stable communities. One of the beautiful things that I love about Northside and I love about St. Paul is there are stable, pillared families that are there, that have been there for generations. You can look at folks and be like, oh, you so-and-so's kid, and this is so-and-so's baby, or and it's a beautiful thing because those families have been pillared in the community and they have made those type of investments. So making that type of self-awareness and investment viral, and knowing and understanding how to value ourselves and what valuable housing and sustainable housing means for ourselves and our community. I just think those things are important. It's the work.
Absolutely.
We're worth it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you touched on so many things too when it comes to just one of those like scary facts in St. Paul, right, is a lot of our eviction rates actually happen within Black homes and Black families. It's not often talked about. It's kind of like a hidden thing. It's like when you go down, who's actually getting evicted, who's getting placed out of their home, who can't afford their rent. A lot of Black families in St. Paul make up our eviction rate. And so for me, coming into office as a city councilor, one of the things I really wanted to set out to do was work extensively on evictions prevention. We know that when a family goes into the cycle and they're evicted, it's kind of like a criminal record. It's very scarring on your housing record to not be able to get another apartment, even if the eviction right isn't upheld. So even if the eviction is filed, that's something that the next landlord that you try to get into an apartment building can see whether or not it even, went through. You could have paid your rent after the eviction was filed and kept your home, but there isn't a hey, this eviction was filed, but it didn't go through. It's just, they see that there was an eviction proceeding. And that is something that I have seen really in my neck of the woods too, and on the east side of St. Paul, especially where families, are looking for homes, they are looking for housing, but then they're not able to access certain buildings or certain resources. We passed tenant protections in the city of St. Paul years prior to me being on the city council, but the council at the time, faced a lot of pushback legally, and eventually overturned that policy. So my first ordinance passed was bringing tenant protections back 4 years later. And it was certain things like, why does a family get charged so much for security deposits in their apartment? So we capped it at 1 month's rent, which for some people it's still too high. But when you're looking at just like what the options are, and what people have access to, like those things matter. Rent control, was a huge topic in the city of St. Paul. I was very supportive of rent stabilization, not necessarily because, when people are thinking about policy, sometimes you have to prioritize people you're trying to serve. Rent stabilization was about actively, intentionally controlling the amount of rent people were charged and increase of rent that they were facing every year. And people were being priced out, but their income wasn't matching. So if I have a job and my salary is not increasing 3% every year, but my rent is increasing 3% every year, now I can't afford or keep up with my rent payment, and now I have to move somewhere else and find somewhere else to stay. And so these are some of the things that, like, from a housing perspective, I'm very unapologetically rent focused. 50% of my word is renters, and I have homeowners as well. And so I've been talking a lot about who are we developing for? Being a part of the Housing Redevelopment Authority, we have a lot of work that needs to happen in our city's downtown right now. But again, I think if some of our policymakers were thinking about downtown in the 70s and 80s, when a lot of these decisions were made about what was going to go downtown, we probably wouldn't be in the situation we're in now. A lot of the same people own a majority of downtown businesses and property. And so when they are long and gone, there's not a system plan for what that building looks like and what happens to it. And so we need to be thinking about not only like what we're building, but who are we building it for, what kind of communities we want to see, what things we're funding right now. And actively, the federal government is cutting substantial amount of resources to things like SNAP and food assistance programs. And you can't help but ask why. And it's just like, very clear that the presidential administration doesn't care about certain people getting access to certain resources and being able to afford certain things, because we know the generational wealth is power. And you're starting to see a lot of Black and brown families catch up to that. And so then you see policies that go in place, buildings that go in place in Black neighborhoods, and you kind of see history repeat itself in both Minneapolis and St. Paul. And so I think when we're thinking about just leadership on housing, for me, it is look like making sure that we're, funding down payment assistance programs. So first-time homeowners actually can access resources. Because the city of St. Paul has its own down payment assistance program, we can't apply actually to the county for those resources, but our program was paused for over a year. And so the questions kind of coming in asking, well, why? What is going on? Like, why can't we get this back up? Because families like ours are looking for those resources, but they're being waitlisted. And so just some of those technical pieces of just like, we have programs in place and we are putting money in places, but whether or not Black and brown families are able to access those dollars, that's a different question. And so part of my job has been just making sure that we can.
Yes, and I thank you for that. And you mentioned something in there that I think is very important, where you mentioned that a lot of those eviction rates are coming from Black households. I think that one of the main things we did when we created the UBLA was we had to ensure that we're talking about foundational Blacks, because a lot of times we get caught in disparity numbers, but majority of the disparities is specifically in our community. Yeah. So, transferring to another topic, speaking even on public safety, when we think about violence that happens within our community, and both of y'all represent what, the inner person. Yeah, y'all both represent. Both of them. East side is treacherous. East side, you right on the north side. So y'all both understand, and I know public safety is very relevant within both of y'all wards. So
did you say the east side was the boondocks? Mm-hmm. Girl, that east side is treachery.
Yeah. Hey, wait, look, they both. But what are some things that y'all that represents what I would call the heart of both of the cities, honestly, where we do have our people at? What are some things public safety wise that you all are thinking? Because the point of this conversation is not only just to talk about some of the problems that we face, but also what are some solutions that we can do moving forward as a community together, and that people can take away from this. I'll pass it over to you first, Ms. Johnson. I will say that we are running low before we go into the next one, so if y'all can both just keep it brief, so we can get through these questions. But I do want to thank y'all. And just what are some public safety initiatives that you believe that people should get behind and that you're working on right now on both of your respective sides?
Yeah, I'll be really quick with three things. The first I'll just share is that the city of St. Paul has an unmatched non-fatal shooting unit in our police department. The numbers don't lie. We have been able to prosecute more non-fatal shootings than we have in the past decade. That was an initiative started under the Carter administration. I also think that in many ways, had it not been the case, communities like mine, like I joke about who I represent, but I genuinely am serious about my community and about the east side of St. Paul, because we do get like all of the headlines where I come over to our neck of the woods and it's like, yeah, and at the same time, because of things like the non-fatal shooting unit, when an individual, maybe I've had 3, I think in the last 2 weeks in my ward alone, I've just times when the commander or the chief has to call and let us know the staff if someone has shot themselves or been shot by a stray bullet. And in our community, if that's tolerated and if that seemed like okay, and there's no prosecution, there's no justice, that says something. And so just in general, if you haven't looked into the non-fatal shooting unit in the city of St. Paul, you should. The numbers are truly impactful when it comes to just being able to prosecute non-fatal shootings like a homicide. And that matters when you're looking at something we just don't know, right? Things could turn from a non-fatal shooting to a homicide very, very quickly. And if it's not handled with care in that capacity, then we're starting from square one, and evidence is mismatched. We all know the deal. Second, I would just say that we just brought in a new leader to the Office of Neighborhood Safety. The alternative response, I think, is going to be really important over the next couple of years, and it actually has to work for real, how it was intended. And then lastly, I would just share that, like, there are more and more everyday people like you and I showing up in different ways because of things like Operation Metro Surge, which also impacted the city of St. Paul. But I mean, I watched Black and brown folks, non-immigrant families being targeted by ICE during Operation Metro Surge because you look Black, you look brown, you sounded like you weren't from here. Just people coming into laundromats, folks coming in, you know, pulling people over. And it didn't matter if you had a US passport or a Visa card from somewhere else, like they did not care. Everyday people showing up and really saying, hey, public safety matters to me as well. I care about what happens to my neighbor. I'm not a bystander. Like, that is going to matter so much if we continue to be at the center of attacks. And right now, the city of St. Paul, and just because, right, like, they just put so much money into ICE operations. They're actively trying to take your voter data. They're actively trying to get more government in your business at the federal, state, and local levels, which means that we could be a target in many ways, especially in our communities like the north side and the east side. And so it's going to take all of us to be like, hey, public safety is important for me, but also, like, what happens to you is going to matter. If I see something happening to Marquita, I'm not going to just look the other way because it's not me. That needs to change when it comes to public safety on all fronts. And so just really want to encourage people to take that on by the head, because government can't be the only entity that we turn to for solutions. It has to be our neighborhoods too.
Pearl, same question to you. What are some initiatives that you're pushing public safety? What are some things that community can do moving forward?
Things that I'm pushing public safety, when we think about public safety, I don't just think about the shootings and the violence. I think about the deficits and the disparities, which is why I'm so thankful that the UBLA has worked on this so diligently to put this together, because this is the public safety map right here. This is what is, collective efficacy and putting together agendas and solution to clear these deficits is what's going to improve the public safety in this, in our communities. We look at, how do we stop gun violence disparities? Well, it's jobs, it's equal access to housing, it's ensuring that our children have the right and proper education. It's not just take the gun and keep it safe. No. There is a scarcity mindset when you are living in crisis mode and you are in a state of suspended consciousness where you believe that this is all there is and there is nothing else coming. Then all of my behaviors, and I'm in survival mode. I don't know what it means to not live in crisis, to not live in survival mode, to have housing insecurity, to not know if my mama or my daddy or whomever is coming home tonight because they're working or they just didn't make it. When you're in that survival mindset, that increases, the issues that we have around public safety. We have to allow our communities to get comfortable living. They don't know how to live. We just know how to survive. We have to teach each other how to live, and it's going to take a lot of efficacy and ensuring that we have very clear and cohesive pathways to the things that we need to help our communities and our children to become successful. And that's what we're missing right now. That's public safety.
And I want to make a note and comment on something that you both talked about, are the average median incomes. Councilmember Johnson said that 50,000 the average median income in your ward, and Councilmember Warren said 43,000, which is for the Black population, which is higher than the state average median income for Black population, which I think is about 36,000. But all three of those numbers are significantly lower than the average white. averaging income at 82,000. And so going into those points about that survival mode, and I think of Maslow's hierarchy, where we are just constantly that bottom level, that pyramid, thinking about breathing, eating, sleeping, we don't get to thrive or live in life, and we're just constantly in that, like you mentioned that, or how you said it, I really agree with constant state of suspension, where we're kind of going through the motions, surviving.
Right.
So yeah, AJ.
Yeah, no, I think for that, it's very important that we have y'all up here, as our sisters from the north side and the east side, you know what I'm saying? St. Paul and north side Minneapolis in the building. Two black women that I really respect, both of y'all. I was able to watch you from far because my cousin is working with you on your campaign. And of course, I've known me and Pearl, we worked together before. So just to see both of y'all and some of the initiatives that y'all are pushing. And for those young black girls and young black men as well, it's in those communities that we don't have the representation that we should have in these communities. Now we do. So I'm just grateful that you all were both a part of this conversation. As we stated from the beginning, this conversation is not the end all be all. This is just the beginning phase. As we're getting into the primaries, getting into all these different election talks, the goal of the UVLA was to get our people registered to vote, but also to create an agenda and a criteria in which you're voting for. So that when elected officials come to you, so that's why it's important when you speak about some of the initiatives and some of the things that you are doing. So that moving forward, when people come into our community, you're not up for election, but there's other seats that is in place this year. So when they come into your ward or they come over here, we are able to speak with an agenda. You want to say something?
Can I say something about that too? Being very specific about what we're asking for. Don't just say we want better schools or better educational opportunities for our children.
Yes.
Talk about the being specific. You have to have a very specific and measurable matrix of requirements. That you are making when it comes to making those need. Here's what we did to be solution driven around it. We know that this works in this jurisdiction. It needs to be magnified at a state level. You know what I mean? And we're pushing those things. I mean, this is just my thoughts.
Oh, no.
They know me up here. It's safe.
That's beautiful. And like I said, I look forward to having a deeper conversation with both of y'all. Maybe in the same type of setting like this, where we can go deeper into some of the ideas y'all got, because y'all both is great speakers. You know what I mean? And y'all. Well, we really could have just let y'all talk and we could have just sat back. So I apologize for me speaking a little too much and not letting y'all have it. So I want to thank y'all for coming up here. Once again, Ms. Pearl Warren, Ms. Johnson, for coming up here and speaking to our community. And like I said, I look forward to working with y'all as we move forward and try to push this UBLA coming into the next year. So thank y'all both.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, community. My name is Councilmember with
The next one.
Wonderful word for in North Minneapolis. I want to talk to you all about how important it is to get out and vote. It is your right and you should exercise it. I love the work that Minnesota Organizing for Change is doing to build a wonderful voting block in this community and help us all gather around great candidates. Keep up the great work and get out and vote.
As an outcall for mothers, African-American mothers and women to step forward and talk about the issues that we're facing with our young children. It has progressed into being about the family.
Congressional district. So just holler that out. So tell me when we're ready. Go. First, welcome back to Minnesota Organizing for Change, pushing the UBLA agenda. And we got Marquita Stevens as the Twin City Urban League president, the CEO. And we just want to see what Marquita just said. What's the Urban League doing? Y'all are part of the UBLA. We want to get out to the community and why it's important to vote.
Thank you, Al, for including us as part of this very enlightening conversation that we've had in community. Congratulations to you and those who work with you on providing this forum for everybody to get informed, to ask questions, and to learn exactly what's happening in community. Urban League has a over 100-year history of addressing issues that face African-American folks in particular in communities around the country. Core values around employment rights, housing rights, and family rights make up the lifeblood of the Urban League, and it's no different here. I would say that in our employment area, which shout out to Senator Champion for allowing some funding to come through to support that initiative, and as a result, we're bringing in more African-American folks to learn about industry-specific jobs related to AI and other systems that are on the horizon, because our efforts around employment is to make sure whatever pathways for employment and workforce are on the horizon, that we have ample numbers of African-Americans trained and ready for those positions. We stand at the precipice of those areas that are on the forefront, as well as those areas that have consistently made up our workforce in the community, because we don't want our folks to be left out or left behind. And so we keep an eye out toward what is on the horizon with respect to that. We also do work in family stabilization, and that's one of the things that you may not know a lot about. As many of you know, the disparity rate for African-American kids in out-of-home protection is extremely high and disconcerting. So we do some services around there. And I would just ask you to look at Joni Cannon, who's a fantastic staff person and icon in community, and talk to her about some of the things that she's been doing with respect to that. I'm particularly, encouraged by the fact that there's been a couple of folks that have spoken here that have passed their way through Urban League. One is Pearl Warren, which I'm always supportive of and happy to see. So her housing business is long-standing, and certainly she did that work with us several years ago, and so I'm glad to see her flourishing in these new ways, and it just does my heart proud. So support her every way you can. Okay. Not only for what she does, but because she's a proud urban leader. And then Shaniqua, she didn't work for the Urban League, but she was there. That's where I met her, when she was working for Keith Ellison, when he had his office in the Urban League, and I learned of her ambitions and her her interests and the things that she's able to bring to community. And so I'm really proud to see her flourish and the like in the work that she's doing. And these other sisters that are out there that are doing the work. Proud to see Rachel Hudson, who is a former employee of Urban League as well. So Urban League is continuing to produce talent that comes through and is supported and goes on and does some great things in community.
And first, thank you. I sure was going to shout out Shanika for when she was over there with Keith Ellison, but looked like our CEO of the Urban League wasn't leaving nobody out, so that's a great thing. And then Thomas Berry, it's important that, you know, a conversation about why this is important, Thomas, and what the message you got to Black men about being involved.
I just want to say I want to start with a message to Black men, which is Black people in general, because we are on the precipice of a return to Jim Crow. And before Jim Crow, we had Reconstruction coming right off the plantations. And what sparked Jim Crow was that once we got off the plantations, we created over 117 towns throughout the South and the Midwest. We had over 191 elected officials, and white folks were just jealous and angry. And that's what sparked Jim Crow. That sparked the rise of the Klan. I bring that up to say that's what's sparking the rise of MAGA. No one wants to tell the truth, but when you guys were saying Black girls magic and Black girls rock, the white boys are getting mad. And that's why part of the legislation came at targeting Black women. Part of the issue nobody paid attention to, that Black men were never brought to the party, never invited to the party, left out of the party. Matter of fact, talked bad about because they didn't like not being invited to the party. And what we're saying is, if we're going to get back to where we're the strongest, we have to go back to that reconstructed mindset, and we have to get Black men involved. And I say that respectfully. And I'm talking about heterosexual Black men who are looking to protect and provide for their families. They have to get involved in politics. Now, I do want to say this respectfully, because when you're under attack, you don't always get along with your allies. White folks fought a 100-year war, but when they decided that they wanted to move outside of Europe and fight and get things, they decided to put their differences aside. We have to learn how to put our differences aside too. That goes even for our allies inside the Democratic Party. Yes, they've done things to us. Yes, they've wronged us. But at the same time, who are we? And we have to step up. We have to come together. We have to make sure that we're not giving in to this fascist regime called MAGA. We don't have time to play. We don't. You know why Malcolm left the nation? Because he didn't want to sit with the Klan. I'm not going to sit with anybody who don't understand what's wrong with MAGA. If you think MAGA is somehow okay, if you can't see what they're doing to our folks in the South, where they totally reversed everything from the civil rights movement, that's just your ego. And I can't be there for your ego. We have to start talking truth to power, and sometimes the power within on our own community. Because why do the pastors want to sit with the Pharaoh? And when I say Pharaoh, I'm talking about the city, I'm talking about the state, I'm talking about the county. The same people who got policies that are crippling our community, wanted them to have them feed us. Where are Black businesses at? Everybody else, ain't nobody else talking about a nonprofit and running the foundations. They can go to the corporations in that community and have them cut checks. I'm not saying that we should not go to government because we're putting tax dollars in. But at the same time, where are our companies at? So when I'm asking Black men to get to the polls, I'm not asking you to come to the polls so we can have the same old same. No, we need to speak up. We need to change. We need to get involved. Our babies are dying. And furthermore, women are asking for us to tap in. Don't let nobody tell you what I'm saying as if it's some type of assault on Black women. The sisters are saying they're tired. So if you're tired, that's what we're here for. And that's what time it is. So that's why. That's the initiative. That's why I don't want you just to register to vote. I want to get you to the polls. All this talk about registration. They done had get out the vote campaigns in Minnesota for forever. It greases a few pockets, but ain't nobody still getting to the poll to vote. We need to get people to the polls. Your registration means nothing if it's on a piece of paper and you're not casting your vote.
Absolutely. Hey, when they talking, hey,
I'm so used to, yeah, when they get through, I just.
Hold on a second, because I do want to say this too, because I heard folks saying something about ICE and $70 billion. I created this thing called the Watch Act. Now I've been calling elected officials. I even asked folks that, hey, listen, I want to give away 10,000 free subscriptions so we can make sure that children are protected before violence started in the summer, as well as domestic violence. I could not get Black leadership inside of the Twin Cities to donate $10 per child to give away those 10,000 subscriptions. We don't have time for you to go on vacation, go on your gala, or go to anywhere else before we help our children. So don't tell me what we can't do. See, the difference between MAGA and the difference between our leadership is MAGA does everything immediately. What we do is we got to think about it for 3 weeks. Then we got to have another meeting for the next 5 weeks. And then we may come to the conclusion that we want to do something if we don't believe that the white man's ice is colder and we need to outsource to them. So when y'all tell me this is what y'all want to do, if y'all telling me they put 70 billion, why ain't nobody responding to the phone calls? Why ain't nobody trying to make sure we ain't getting people snatched off the streets? If we care. And the last point, they're going to come for us next, Black folks, because they don't want us at the polls. That's why they put the $70 billion in. So if we're not going to be urgent in this moment, not lazy, because there's a lot of meetings about meetings, and I'm telling you, don't invite me to the rest of them. I'm tired of it. Whether it's by Zoom or in person. What are we going to do? We do not have the luxury to constantly sit and wait. And that's why I'm asking Black men, because I know brothers understand the urgency. Because they'll tell you, don't invite us to the fight if you don't want us to fight. Because when we show up, we coming to fight. We ain't coming to talk. So that's why I'm asking. If you're worried about ICE, get up with me.
Yeah, and I say to the community, this why this was so important. It's so important to lock in every state, and then then they doing this like this to me. I ain't saying nothing yet. They send the show, but what I did do was make sure the Twin Cities Minneapolis Urban League president. The Marquita Stevens got on here and said what they were doing. Then this is what I could tell you. You could go on Minnesota Organizers Pertain. You can go on the link. You can find the UBLA. You can find the link to the Twin City Urban League. You can find the link to the NAACP. You can find links to a lot of things, and we just building it up. So it's just a start. And I hear what Thomas said. Yep, let's get brothers to the poll. Let's get brothers to the poll. We want to go across the state and do this, and we want to collaborate with places like the Urban League and so on. So the next the people you'll see when we put these mics out is the ending of the show. It's the ending of what we're doing. And I'm asking to end the show with you can't end it no better than this. With the facilitators, AJ Fowles and Miles Wilson. But to end it with Alicia Smith, Alicia Crudup, used to be Smith, but just one of the biggest advocates I know, and somebody I always call if I'm gonna get something done, you're gonna get it done if you are working with Alicia, even if she works with sometimes people I don't care about, but I still have to do what I do. And our icon, our leader, no better way to ask him to come here and see what we are doing, because that's our way, whether we're in the right place to come up and say what AJ and Miles is doing and the rest of us is doing. Spike Moss. So these are our last two. Let's stick around, and hopefully we'll get to take a picture with some of these people like Pearl One, like Shanika, and we'll get a good picture in. After these, the last guest, he looking at. And he's looking. Okay, I got to go. We'll be back with our last panelist discussion. We'll be right back.
I just want to say one last thing.
Yep.
And that is, we are working to bring back or revitalize the YPs, Young Professionals, which is an auxiliary of the Urban League. So if those of you who are under 40, between 18 and 40, please reach out to KICE or to Vachel and let them know of your interests, because that's where our voter integration activity is going to come through. And that'll be a start. Voter turnout is a start. We want them to continue on and build power so that they can be part of the solution in much larger ways.
Well, he done stopped you. Okay, we'll be right back, y'all. Yes, we'll be right back. Okay. Spike? Yeah.
I'm glad to be going to course, Spike. Can't lose.
Yeah, but it was the bomb. It was the bomb. But never get through. Oh, boy. That was a good one, boy. That was a good one.
Yeah, we got one still on. We go low.
Just like this.
We just listening.
We get a popsicle, take our time. I was supposed to come and listen. He said he wanted me to say something. But I'm glad I did because there's a lot of points that y'all making right on time. It made me very proud to hear you.
All right.
Okay.
So welcome back, everybody, to Minnesota Organizing for Change, conversation centered around the United Black Legislative Agenda. I want to give a thank you to Thomas Berry, Minneapolis Vice President of NAACP, for his words, and I agree with him. Us men, we got to step up, and we have to be a part of the conversation. Black men, black heterosexual males too. Let me just say that. And then I want to also thank Marquita for coming up here and speaking, the CEO of the Minneapolis Urban League, for speaking with us as well. I just want to, before I get down, well, matter of fact, I'll get down to our last two guests. We're starting to wind down. I want to make sure I get to these two guests right here. I got Miss Alicia Crudup. Crudup, is that right? Yeah. Okay, yeah, sometimes I'm messing up. I just did that with Carmen, and she got on me like, hey, man, look, I work for this now, make sure you give me my name. But, and that's respectful, and the legendary Mr. Spike Moss here with us to speak as we wrap this conversation up. I think we had a lot of great things that was spoken to us today. As we said, the goal of this conversation was not only to get our people out and thinking about civic engagement and register to vote, but to start to build up your criteria and your agenda on what it is that you need in order for people to get your vote. Specifically speaking to our foundational Black Americans, but anybody can use this as a message for them how they vote. So I want to start off with you, Miss Alicia, and just from the conversation that you heard today, and I know you've been a part of the Juneteenth committee as well. What are some things that you believe is very vital as far as when we're talking about building up our agenda, or why do you think it's important for you to have an agenda before you get out and vote?
The agenda is simple. It really sets the stage for you to know what you need to be informed about, right? The world can be overwhelming. If we focus on all the things in the world, we lose sight of ourselves. And so it's really critical for us as Black folks to remember it's okay to be Black. And in fact, it's so sexy. Everybody wants to do it until it comes down to actually being Black. And so realizing the power in that, Black folks are the most accepting people in the world. There is no space where other communities don't come to for acceptance, for validation, to learn and strategize and take our fight and place it on themselves, right? So we understand that. We just have to collectively begin to remember the power that we possess, right? So sitting at the table with y'all and with this amazing elder who I've learned so much from, and from many others who have spoken. It is critical that we continue to hyper focus on our issues and be committed to our issues, right? And other people will come alongside of us, but that is not our problem. Our problem is us. And like Thomas said, like Mr. Flower said, we don't always have to agree, but what we do have to agree is that we are in a fight and we got to keep going. And our men are important. I've never been one to shy away from the uplifting of Black men and for the inclusion of our Black men, our heterosexual Black men, because it is so important. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my father
for my grandfather, for my uncles, for my cousin. I come from a family where the men have always been present. So the absence of a Black man is foreign to me. And so that is a misnomer that the world has allowed for us to believe that our men are somehow absent. Have they been ostracized and isolated? Absolutely. But we have to remember that when we go into the room, we need to bring our men with us. We have to. I'm raising sons with my husband. Those boys are the most important people in the world to me. There is nothing I wouldn't do for them. There's nothing I wouldn't do for my husband, for my father, for the men that I love and support. And so I have to do that openly, because if I don't love on them, if I don't praise them and prepare them for the world that absolutely hates them, they will be lost. And so it is critical that we remain focused on our issues, lock into one or two of them, because it can be overwhelming. What we hear is negative, 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 negative. What we won't talk about is how many Black babies graduated this past weekend. We won't talk about how many of them graduated not only from post-secondary institutions, but post-baccalaureate institutions. And so we have to continue to uplift our children. The celebrations at prom, graduations that are over the top, because sometimes we don't know if our babies are going to make it. And so we have to celebrate life in the moment. And so that becomes critical for us as a people. Remember, we can focus on us and still be good to everyone else, but we can't put our oxygen mask on last and save the world.
As you say on the plane, it says, get your mask first. If someone's happening, don't look at nobody else first. Get your mask, save yourself. And just to go to you, Mrs. Mike Moss Smith, sort of pretty much probably everybody in this room right now. And if you haven't had the opportunity to sit down with Mrs. Spike Moss, what are you doing? If you're talking about our people, especially in the state of Minnesota, but you see the conversation we're having, you know the direction that we're trying to push this thing. I guess we kind of know the importance of why it's important. What are some marching orders, that you're general, what are some marching orders you believe that we as a community need to take away from this conversation based on what you heard today?
Well, let me first say too, I really came to just hear you. And I am extremely grateful that you had the nerve to do this to people who are absent from the polls every year in large numbers. When Thomas Berry was speaking, just before Trump was elected, he said the Mexican people will poison white blood. He said, and African people will poison white blood too. The day before he was sworn in, he said, look at my beautiful white skin. Ain't it pretty? So you know, to what Thomas Berry was saying, the goal is to round all of us up. Either kill us or run us out of this country, and we're sleeping on it. So number one, and I heard a cross-section of a lot of things. A Black woman with children going to buy a home would be told debt to income, she doesn't have the money. But you put her in a $1,200, $1,300 apartment building with one bedroom for $1,200, $1,300, and you ain't bring up her income. But you cripple her for life. When they talk about minimum wage, it minimizes your potential to have a good life and be successful. But why I hold you on minimum wage, everything else is doing this. So when he said livable wage, it allows you to do this. The other thing is, put on your agenda what you want. Redlining is illegal. Redlining is the number one way that Black people can't get loans for homes and businesses, but no bank president or chairman has ever went to court or jail for redlining. That's got to be one of the things you're demanding from the party you support, so that women can have homes, so men and women can have homes, but we can have businesses in our own avenues. See, the last time they made us so angry as a people, from Queen Avenue and Plymouth down to Washington Avenue, Black people burned every business they had because they were sick and tired of the treatment in this town. It can be rebuilt either there or Broadway, because everything is 100 and some years old. But you don't challenge redlining. If it's illegal, then make it illegal, because everything you do illegal, you go in court and jail. If it's illegal, make it illegal. The other thing is, make sure our people understand we're not begging. Minnesota African Americans put in over $4 billion a year. We don't get back 25 million of our own money. And black people always saying, stop begging. We ain't begging, we're paying in. We've been paying in. We're not getting anything back. We want a house, a clear house. Get 2 or 3 businesses. In those 2 or 3 businesses, like the Urban League, you want to bring money in to hit all of our programs. But it has to be ran by us. The biggest programs ran in North Minneapolis are all white controlled. The biggest budgets are all white controlled. It's your community. You beg for bills and bits. They're going to do social service for you. What do they know about you other than they hate you? So you have to go back to the Capitol, not beggars or afraid. We want a percentage of whatever our plan is for our $4 billion, and the percentage we want out of it. You be realistic. We can't play with these people no more. The reason we couldn't get it done, we had too many Negroes in the way. We got to get some African Americans out here with clear thinking heads of where we got to go. When you talk about the men are broken because too many are born and raised with women. They got no manhood in them. They walk around with buns on their head like you. Hair coming down with raindrops to the colors of tips of their fingers. We got to get the man back to you.
collectively begin to remember the power that we possess, right? So sitting at the table with y'all and with this amazing elder who I've learned so much from, and from many others who have spoken, it is critical that we continue to hyper focus on our issues and be committed to our issues, right? And other people will come alongside of us, but that is not our problem. Our problem is us. And like Thomas said, like Mr. Flower said, we don't always have to agree, but what we do have to agree is that we are in a fight and we got to keep going. And our men are important. I've never been one to shy away from the uplifting of Black men and for the inclusion of our Black men, our heterosexual Black men, because it is so important. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my father, for my grandfather, for my uncles, for my cousin. I come from a family where the men have always been present. So the absence of a Black man is foreign to me. And so that is a misnomer that the world has allowed for us to believe that our men are somehow absent. Have they been ostracized and isolated? Absolutely. But we have to remember that when we go into the room, we need to bring our men with us. We have to. I'm raising sons with my husband. Those boys are the most important people in the world to me. There is nothing I wouldn't do for them. There's nothing I wouldn't do for my husband, for my father, for the men that I love and support. And so I have to do that openly, because if I don't love on them, if I don't praise them and prepare them for the world that absolutely hates them, they will be lost. And so it is critical that we remain focused on our issues, lock into one or two of them, because it can be overwhelming. What we hear is negative, 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 negative. What we won't talk about is how many Black babies graduated this past weekend. We won't talk about how many of them graduated not only from post-secondary institutions, but post-baccalaureate institutions. And so we have to continue to uplift our children. The celebrations at prom, graduations that are over the top, because sometimes we don't know if our babies are going to make it. And so we have to celebrate life in the moment. And so that becomes critical for us as a people. Remember, we can focus on us and still be good ones to everyone else, but we can't put our oxygen mask on last and save the world.
As you say on the plane, it says, get your mask first. If someone's happening, don't look at nobody else first. Get your mask, save yourself. And just to go to you, Mrs. Mike Moss, mentor of pretty much probably everybody in this room right now. And if you haven't had the opportunity to sit down with Mrs. Spike Moss, what are you doing? If you're talking about our people, especially in the state of Minnesota, but you see a conversation we're having, you know the direction that we're trying to push this thing. I guess we kind of know the importance of why it's important. What are some marching orders, you know, know that you're general. What are some marching orders you believe that we as a community need to take away from this conversation based on what you heard today?
Well, let me first say I really came to just hear you. And I am extremely grateful that you had the nerve to do this. You were people who are absent from the polls every year in large numbers. When Thomas Berry was speaking, just before Trump was elected, he said the Mexican people will poison white blood. He said, and African people will poison white blood too. The day before he was sworn in, he said, look at my beautiful white skin. Ain't it pretty? So you know, to what Thomas Berry was saying, the goal is to round all of us up. Either kill us or run us out of this country, and we're sleeping on it. So number one, and I heard a cross-section of a lot of things. A Black woman with children going to buy a home would be told debt to income, she doesn't have the money. But you put her in $1,200, $300 apartment building with one bedroom for $1,200, $1,300, and you ain't bring up her income, but you cripple her for life. When they talk about minimum wage, it minimizes your potential to have a good life and be successful. But while I hold you on minimum wage, everything else is doing this. So when he said livable wage, it allows you to do this. The other thing is, put on your agenda what you want. Redlining is illegal. Redlining is the number one way that Black people can't get loans for homes and businesses, but no bank president or chairman has ever went to court or jail for redlining. That's got to be one of the things you're demanding from the party you support, so that women can have homes, so men and women can have homes, but we can have businesses in our own avenues. See, the last time they made us so angry as a people, from Queen Avenue and Plymouth down to Washington Avenue, Black people burnt every business they had because they were sick and tired of the treatment in this town. It can be rebuilt either there or Broadway, because everything is 100 and some years old. But if you don't challenge redlining, if it's illegal, then make it illegal, because everything you do illegal, you go in court and jail. If it's illegal, make it illegal. The other thing is, make sure our people understand we're not begging. Minnesota African Americans put in over $4 billion a year. We don't get back 25 million of our own money. And black people always saying, stop begging. We ain't begging, we're paying in. We've been paying in. We're not getting anything back. We want a house, a clearinghouse. Get 2 or 3 businesses. In those 2 or 3 businesses, like the Urban League, you want to bring money in to hit all of our programs. But it has to be ran by us. The biggest programs ran in North Minneapolis are all white controlled. The biggest budgets are all white controlled. It's your community. You beg for givers and gifts. They're going to do social service for you. What do they know about you other than they hate you? So you have to go back to the Capitol, not beggars or afraid. We want a percentage of whatever our plan is for our $4 billion, and the percentage we want out of it. You be realistic. We can't play with these people no more. The reason we couldn't get it done, we had too many Negroes in the way. We got to get some African Americans out here with clear thinking heads of where we got to go. When you talk about the men are broken because too many are born and raised with women. They got no manhood in them. They walk around with burns in their head like you. Hair coming down with raindrops of the colors of tips of their fingers. We got to get the man back to you. So when we go into this clearinghouse, they got foolishness in the school system that won't let you allow who you are. You can't wear your black beard no more. You can't wear your nappy hair no more. So we got to bring these institutions together that we need to take care of us socially, take care of us spiritually, take care of us economically, and then our security. Because the security first got to be challenged in terms of, do you understand you're destroying your people? And to say this, 1 year alone, 730 carjackings, 90% done to black women by black children. When you look around at the kids that are stolen cars at 11 to 12 o'clock at night, they are 11 and 12 years old and sometimes 8, 9 with their older brothers in stolen cars. How do you walk out of the house that young? So that means some of the institutions to the Urban League have to be the development of a woman to be a proper mother, not a mama. Mamas just give birth. But as a mother just tie your shoe like this, we got to get that back. And the mother says you can go outside and play front yard, backyard. So we go out there at money, we're going after every program. And we have to sit down with a few of you organizations to be the clearinghouse. And then we go forth as a community, not they, demanding that every program is meant to remove some of this madness. When I talk to him about running for office, I talk to him about taking over all these empty buildings, knocking them down, and we develop our own world. Don't act like we don't deserve it. We did 230 years of slavery. We were 150 years in slave ships. We were 150 years of Jim Crow. We were 400 years of oppression. Act like you know. Stand up, get up, and get ready to push back because they're coming at you to take away everything you accomplished. In my mind, why did they go in Philadelphia to the Black Slave Museum and tear it down in broad daylight if they respect you? If you want your respect, go earn it, like he said. Stand up and take it like they talk about, and then you'll get it. But we got to come as a family. If we can get 3 organizations or 2 to clear our money, then we go fight for it. And we fight not jealousy. We fight no about how well they do. You fight about everything we need and we want it covered. Do not go forward mediation at the table. Trump said before he ran for office, he said, I don't want the police suspended anymore with cases of crime against black people. And I don't want them fired. I don't want them to go to jail. So mediation will have to be strong, and they have to put your budget into that clearinghouse so that you're not begging or asking or hoping, but we have everybody's salary exactly what they need, and then you make a difference, and you get our kids in college. Once you get us healthy and loving and caring about each other again, and that black woman becomes our queen again instead of our B and our H. That black boy becomes our brother again instead of that N. We got to clear all that madness out to become who we are, African people born in America, first human beings that ever walked the earth, but not without her. And make sure all black women understand it. I love Mother's Day, but we need to celebrate Mother's Day and then celebrate you as the mother of humanity, is where I'm at with it all. But I can't thank y'all enough for what you did today. And don't stop, do 3 more, and make sure you go everywhere you can go in Minnesota. If we have to raise the money collectively for you to do it. Because this project you're doing, this is at a time they wish they could take back everything that we earned. We did not earn these things the way y'all think. I was in them jails in Alabama and Texas. I was pinned on a black woman's body, 63 years old, while they were beating on top of me on the ground in Alabama. I know what it's like to see a floor this hard, no windows, no air conditioning for air to come in, and the blood is nauseating you, and you can't come out till the judge sees you about standing up for your rights. There's no law that says you can't stand up for your rights. Why are we in jail? Because we're not human. So here you come, the generation. It's your turn to grab this baton and run the way we ran to take our people as far, because black youngsters say they ain't did nothing for them. We didn't walk in white hospitals and whites only. We didn't go see no show, whites only. We didn't go to restaurants and whites only. We didn't walk on Plymouth. We didn't know there was Broadway. We went around and walked on Plymouth Avenue. So you have to understand, Jim Crow's in the middle of downtown Minneapolis on a nickel. That's where SS Kresge, Rulers, Powers all were. All had the sign, whites only, Minnesota. A state that said no slavery had slaves. So we need you like yesterday, but we need you comfortable with everything you need, and we need to go collectively without jealousy and get our people exactly what it takes to do what they got to deliver, and we're gonna be just fine. And then again, remember what I said, Pastor, put that budget in, because the police just this week held a woman down on the ground, looked like she was a child, and got on his knee and just beat her repeatedly with his fist on national TV. So how far have we came? How far have we came? But I'm just saying to all of y'all, and you know I've been telling you a long time, don't change. Don't change. Don't change your spirit. Don't change your truth. But come together as a family, because they're going to come at us as a family. And they're going to try to remove us from this planet.
That's why we make sure Spike Hall speaks last anytime we do that, because you can't really follow that up. I want to once again thank everybody who spoke here today from all those different cities. This is not going to be the end. We're going to try to keep these conversations going. We're going to try to go to these different cities. We're going to get out to Duluth. We're going to let our people know St. Cloud, Rochester, we coming for y'all next too as well. We know our black folks is all throughout the state of Minnesota, so we're going to be there for you. I want to give a huge shout out once again to Diversity Media Group, LLC, for putting this together for us. They came and they did this. They're just as passionate to see this work done as some of the young folks, Big Gabe, Little Gabe, and Little Work Gabe, all three Gabes in here. So shout out to all of them, and we look forward to conversating with y'all some more. Brother Miles, if you want to close us out.
Yeah, no, I just want to thank everybody that joined us live and on our stream. I want to thank all of our panelists and all of our guests who showed up, who filled in, who were already scheduled. This couldn't happen without you all, couldn't happen without Diverse Media Group. And yeah, we made it to time. Again, thank you.
I'm proud of y'all.
Thank you.
My two favorite people here.
Very proud of y'all.
Thank you, everybody.
We are alive and well as long as those people stand up. Live and well. As long as they stand up, right?